Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Red Zone, our very own sports show, brought to you by the very good people at This is Revolution Podcast. I am your host, Jason Miles. If you're new to the channel, welcome. So glad to have you here. For our returning listeners, subscribers, and of course, our very valued patrons, hell yeah. Also, for the viewers of the main show, we will be back tomorrow at our regularly scheduled 6 p.m. Pacific slot. I'll be discussing the school to prison pipeline with Professors Daniel Moak and Sarah Kate. Quick reminder that TIR is listener funded programming. If you enjoy watching all these shows and you have the means and feel so inclined, become a patron. You can access champagne rooms past and present, join us for our patron-only call-in segments, and for our movie nights. Oh, that's right. We're doing another movie night this Friday. Ninja Appreciation Month is coming to a close, but that doesn't mean we have to stop watching ninja movies that hopefully you people watched as young people like me when I was young people. But if not, it's okay. We got you covered here on TIR. This Friday, we will be watching the Ninja / Cold War classic, American Ninja, because nothing spells American might like a little racism. Now, let's talk about why Canadian football was so racially progressive. When we think of great professional American football players, we rarely acknowledge that many consider what many consider the lesser leagues. These leagues, like the Arena League or the Canadian Football League, the CFL, are often viewed as minor leagues to the NFL. That's why we don't know who holds the sack record in the Arena League or who has the most receptions in the CFL. Maybe it's just part of our collective American hubris. While the NFL sometimes used the Canadian League as a peripheral development ground, not every CFL star was called up to the NFL. And in some cases, that reason may have been racially motivated.
We're coming for you, nigga.
Oh. Take Damon Allen, the younger brother of Heisman Trophy winner and NFL Hall of Famer Marcus Allen. Damon may well be one of the greatest quarterbacks in CFL history. Over a prolific 23-year career, 23 years is crazy, he passed for over 70,000 yards and rushed for more than 11,000, numbers that made him the all-time professional football leader in total yards at retirement. He was a true dual threat who won 4 Grey Cups, which is Canada's Super Bowl equivalent, over 4 different decades. And yet Damon Allen never got a legitimate shot in the NFL. Out of Lincoln High in San Diego, Allen was a multi-sport star, a standout quarterback, and a dominant pitcher. He chose baseball as his main sport, attending powerhouse Cal State Fullerton, where he led the team to a College World Series title. But he also started at quarterback for Fullerton's football team in the smaller Pacific Coast Athletic Association, setting the NCAA record for fewest interceptions in a season, finishing 16th in Heisman voting in 1984. The NFL didn't call, but the Detroit Tigers did, drafting him in baseball. Eventually, Allen signed with the Edmonton Eskimos in the CFL as a free agent, platooning at quarterback. While the NFL remained skeptical of black quarterbacks, still clinging to outdated and racist beliefs about mental toughness and decision-making, the CFL was more colorblind. They drafted and signed black quarterbacks regularly, letting them actually play the position. By the late 1960s and into the 70s, the civil rights era model of the Jackie Robinson athlete epitomized by someone like O.J. Simpson began to fade. Simpson, a superstar at USC and the first NFL player to rush for 2,000 yards in just 14 games, don't forget 14 games, embodied part of King's dream, judged by performance, seen as a credit to his race. But the next wave of black athletes was different. They weren't content to let their play do the talking. They were vocal about politics and racism. This shift didn't sit well with much of the sports media establishment, especially older white sports writers. You guys try to say this 12 times fast. Who preferred silent, stoic credit to the race types over outspoken, politically engaged players. Meanwhile, Media coverage disproportionately targeted Black athletes when it came to drug use or locker room tensions, further cementing racist narratives. Damon Allen, though, wasn't just good, he was electrifying. Watch his highlight reels, and you'll see a prototype of Steve McNair. Fast, accurate, elusive. At 6'1, Allen was the ideal height for mid 80s quarterbacks and threw one of the most beautiful deep balls in the history of the game. While he had a few brief backup stints in the NFL, he was never given the same open door as Warren Moon. Moon, who won 5 Grey Cups and 6 seasons in the CFL, eventually made his way to the NFL, but his crossover success was facilitated by his long-established pedigree, dating back to high school in Los Angeles. He fit the image of respectable Black excellence the NFL could tolerate. Allen, on the other hand, was more elusive, literally and figuratively. A master at extending plays, he set quarterback rushing records and proved that mobility and vision could dominate a game. But the NFL didn't know what to do with a dual threat Black quarterback. They wanted Allen to change positions, clinging to racist assumptions about what Black quarterbacks could or couldn't do. Even Randall Cunningham, drafted in the second round by the Eagles, was treated as an experiment. The knock on Cunningham: while he was athletic and elusive, he was inaccurate and couldn't read a defense. Today, with the rise of spread offenses and the dominance of Black quarterbacks and coaches, it might seem like the NFL has come a long way. But we must remember, while the NFL was resisting, sidelining, or coveting Black quarterbacks, the CFL was letting them lead and even changing its play style to make the most of their talents. Case in point, the read option play, now a staple of college football and a game changer in the NFL, is said to have been inspired by Chip Kelly's study of Doug Flutie during his time in Toronto with the Argonauts. And Flutie? He credited Damon Allen with teaching him the foundation of what would become the zone read. So today we're asking, why was Canadian football so racially progressive? And how did that progressiveness contribute to innovations in American football nearly 40 years later? To help us answer that question, we're joined by Canadian radio host Scott Price. But before I can even bring Scott in, I have to bring in my co-host, who also has watched his fair share of Canadian football and the UFL, Macadocious Rex.
That's right. I might be the biggest lover of non-NFL season football, okay? I love spring football. I like the CFL season going from like late summer into the fall because God knows you can't play outside much later than November in Canada.
My God, in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, no thanks.
In Edmonton? In Winterpeg?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
The winter's like,
we're coming for you, nigga.
And the whites.
Just like the summer saying the same thing to everybody in North Carolina right now.
I've heard tales of this heat. Well, let's bring in our guest today. It's always fun when Mac and I get a guest. Please welcome Scott Price.
Hi. Thanks for having me on. This is exciting.
I hope I did Canadian football justice with that mildly flubbed intro.
Absolutely. I mean, Damon Allen came into the league before I was born, and I still got to see that guy play because he played for 23 years. It's fucking ridiculous when you think about it. And you look at his last years in Toronto, he was still putting up good numbers in his 40s. Like, we talk about Tom Brady, but this dude was like, and it's just mind-boggling. I guess him and his brother are both very good football players.
I mean, that fam. So first of all, I don't know if you're the same way, Mac. I didn't know that Marcus had another, and I didn't know that the other might be statistically, and I can't talk today, better than Marcus Allen. Did Marcus Allen play multiple sports?
I believe so, but not at the same level that Damon did.
I mean, they won a college. For when I say that Fullerton is a powerhouse, I should say a baseball powerhouse.
Yeah. But see, my CFL love started during the CFL expansion into the US.
Did they hit where you were from?
No, but
were you stationed somewhere? That was too.
I didn't join the Army until a couple years later. But remember, we're coming right out of the World League of American Football years, right? and the uniforms always got you. I think we all remember the Orlando Surge with the neon green pants and the bright yellow jerseys.
Yeah.
And then I hear the CFL's expanding into Canada, which, we can talk about a little later, Scott, but we both know it was completely motivated by very greedy owners who were dead broke and somehow managed to land their hands on a professional sports franchise. And all they saw were, I'm going to get $3 million from each of these expansion teams. What? And the team that got me was the Las Vegas Posse.
Wow.
And their uniforms were great. But see, I ended up reading End Zones and Border Wars, Scott, by Ed Willis.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal book, Jason. And get this, the Posse was so thrown together to get into Vegas that they didn't even have a practice field. And a casino blocked off their entire parking lot so they could practice on it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like,
yeah. But the Posse is where Anthony Calvillo came out of.
Yeah.
Also one of the more prolific passers in the league. He broke, I think, Allen's passing record eventually.
Yeah, and he was another long, like a dude that played 20 plus years in the league too.
Yeah. I mean, not the same kind of athleticism at all, but like a dude that just had longevity was Calvillo. Like, you just put up numbers every year. Those Alouettes teams were really good. It's wild.
But yeah, Jason, if you ever want to read a good book, read that one. It goes into the entire, like John Candy buying the Argonauts for a little bit. And one of his co-owners would be one of the dudes that pulled the slick one when he bought the Islanders.
And how long? There was only a season that lasted, right? The American expansion.
It was
2 seasons.
Yeah. After the Baltimore Stallions / CFL team club / Colts won the Grey Cup, that was it.
Yeah. The Baltimore team became what Montreal is now, but they don't recognize that at all.
They don't acknowledge it as records.
Yeah, they don't. It's not acknowledged in any way. But that's because Tracy Ham played for Baltimore. That's another guy we should probably talk about, because that you talk about a guy that was way ahead of the time in terms of.
Is that Jack's kid?
I don't know.
No, that's not Jack Ham's kid.
It's not Jack Ham's kid.
But yeah, I mean, it goes back. I mean, with a lot of the color blindness in the CFL. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say Canada's not a racist country, because that would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there's just
different.
But yeah, it's just different, and there's just not the same kind of crazy anti-black racism in Canada.
No, they traded us for natives.
Yeah. So there's always been a notion, I think, especially in the CFL, where it's like, well, if you can play, you can play. It doesn't really matter. It shouldn't matter what skin color you are. So, I mean, this goes back even a little further than Allen, and kind of in the 80s. Bernie Custis was a great university college player, and he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns, I think, in 51, but they still had Otto Graham, and they wanted him to move to a different position. And Custis was like, no, I only want to play quarterback. I'm not playing safety. And they said, well, okay, but we'll release you, but you cannot play anywhere in the NFL. So he came up to Canada, and he went with the Tiger Cats for a while, and he played a number of seasons, and he became the first Black Canadian quarterback in the league's history. At the time, because this is in 51, officially the CFL kind of gets created in 58. So he joined, at the time, the Tiger Cats were a part of the Interprovincial Rugby Football Union, is what it was called. And so in Eastern Canada. And then, yeah, he played a number of years. And that's that same story, right? Like, oh, black quarterback. Do you ever think maybe want to play safety? Like that bullshit. And then in that same era in the 50s, I think one of the more shocking things is Johnny Bright, who was a really big running back star. Like he was a Heisman Trophy. I don't think he won the Heisman, but he was like in the running for it. And he was playing a game against Oklahoma A&M. And there was a bunch of brutal hits against him out like way after the whistle.
Mm-hmm.
He broke his fucking jaw. Like it was called the Johnny Bright incident. And so this one specific defensive lineman for Oklahoma City A&M. I don't know if the video's still up on YouTube somewhere. I remember seeing it. It's brutal. Like they clearly just out to injure this guy. They broke his jaw. He had a concussion, all this shit. He got drafted by the Eagles, and he said, no thanks. And his quote was, well, at the time, a lot of Southern players were coming up to play in the NFL. And he goes, I didn't know what kind of treatment I was going to get. So I said, no, thank you to the Eagles. And he came up to Canada, and he played it with Calgary, and then later with Edmonton, won a bunch of Grey Cups, all-star player, became a really respected principal in Edmonton. I have friends from Edmonton who were like, oh, that's why we have a bunch of things named after Johnny Bright. He was like a really famous guy, but he came up to Canada because of that team from Oklahoma beat the shit out of him because he was a prominent black athlete. And he became the first black CFL MLP in 1959. So that's another really interesting story that I didn't know up until recently, and I started reading about it, and I was like, that's fucking nuts. But anyway.
Did you heard that story before, Mac, about Johnny Bright?
No, but I'm not surprised. I mean, let's face it, college football revolved around the teams in the South for the most part.
Yeah.
And when you're having a league on the come up, which the NFL was in the late 50s, early 60s, that makes sense. I'm not surprised at all that a team called Oklahoma A&M, which I'm pretty sure is now Oklahoma State.
It's in Stillwater?
Yeah, that's Oklahoma State.
State.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, Ole Miss still technically is the Rebels, and while they may have changed their mascot to a bear or something, they still play Dixie at the stadium. They still do all that shit, like it's part and parcel for the course, man. That's the sad part. But yeah, I always thought it was pretty interesting because, I'm 43 and, I knew Warren Moon came from Canada. I think the run and shoot was probably the perfect conduit for him to transition from the Canadian game. And if everybody isn't too savvy on the CFL, keep in mind the field's a little wider and the end zones are deeper. Other than that, the playing surface or the dimensions of the field aren't that much different.
Yeah.
No matter what some of those owners of the American CFL teams might tell you even to this day. But the run and shoot was perfect for him. Now, I think the biggest thing for me, though, is, the NFL staged back in the 70s, exhibition games against, the Grey Cup winners. And you really didn't see a lot of crossover, I'd say, probably until the mid-'80s. You had a couple players, but then we've kind of seen, I wouldn't say a big influx, because I think the Canadian game kind of put some walls up about guys leaving, but allowing more American players in. Because I know they raised the cap on the, what do they call them, exports, by 2 or 3 per roster.
Right. Yeah.
But for me, for what I want to ask is, why haven't we seen more probably skilled players make the transition from the CFL to the NFL?
Well, that's I think there's a couple of things that go into that. One is that there's been a few over the years, definitely. Joe Horn started his career in the CFL. So there's like a few examples. More recently, I can't think of when I'm in Winnipeg, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, my favorite team. They had a young guy who was a rookie last year by the last name of, what was his name? Wilson. He had a great rookie season. He signed with the Jets. Whether or not he's going to start or just back up or practice roster, I don't know. So there is a few times where it happens. I think some of it is, there's a couple things. One is that the game is, like you said, like it's still football. It's not that much different than the NFL, but it's different enough that some of the guys physically have different traits that are important for the CFL. The speed and agility thing in the CFL is very real. Even amongst offensive and defensive linemen, they're generally not as big, because another little rule that's different in the CFL is that you line up a yard off the ball. So that really changes offensive line and defensive line what your first move is. And like, you got to have quick feet. You can't just be a big dude and just expect to do well in the CFL. They will kick your ass. You have to be fast, even at the lineman level. And so interestingly enough, there are some guys over the years who got a contract in the NFL, maybe were there for a little bit. They come back to the CFL, and it actually takes them a year to adjust back to the CFL thing. Like they come back and they actually kind of suck for like a year, and then they like drop that NFL weight. It's like literally like 15 or 20 pounds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for an athlete, if you're carrying that extra weight, it does matter. Another thing I think is, for a lot of NFL people, they look at the CFL and they either think it's not worth the time, or they get a little hung up on some of the differences, because, like in the CFL, there's also 12 guys and there's unlimited motion in the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always this move, right? And so I think maybe when scouts look at that, they kind of like, well, okay, but like, it's true that a lot of Canadian wide guys in Canada use that motion to their advantage, which is, I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
They look at something like that and they say, well, but can he do it in the NFL, or is that so there's those differences enough that I think they look at it and they don't know what they're looking at, or they think they're not. Although, and there's a bias against the CFL. There's a lot of guys, people in the NFL, that just think it's second rate. Who gives a shit? But not everyone. I know for a fact, I don't know if it's himself or people on his staff, but Sean Payton, even when he was in the New Orleans, would bring in CFL players. And in Denver now, one of their starting linebackers, Alex Singleton, I saw him play linebacker for very good Calgary teams before.
Oh, he's a CFL guy?
Yeah.
Because I'm a diehard Bronco fan.
Yeah, he played on some really dominant Calgary teams, and he was a really good player, and he got a shot at the NFL. I mean, he's a guy that comes from a smaller school too. He's like from Montana State or some sort of damn place. Not a big school. But like Singleton is a good example. Like the dude, man, like this last year, he got injured. He like tore his Achilles mid-game, and he didn't realize it, and he still got 10 tackles. And then afterwards, they're like, dude, you're injured. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that hurt, because he's a really good player on defense. You would think, because of all the motion, though, like what you're saying, Mac, that if you can read and react to that insane motion and make tackles at the line of scrimmage, wouldn't the NFL be like, this is the guy we need? Is it really just a size thing?
Well, before we get into this, I have a theory of my own, Scott. I blame Mark Trestman. That's who I blame. When Trestman came back stateside and just shit the bed in Chicago, I think everybody's like, you know what? Fuck Canada. Fuck the CFL. Look at this guy. Look at this joker, who thought he was going to bring all this stuff down here.
Right.
And because like he was supposed to be the next big thing. Remember, he left Toronto, I believe,
Yep.
to come, to go to Chicago and take over, because the Bears, are in one of their, perpetual head coach hiring cycles, and they got into it late. And Trestman put the feelers out that he's really had the itch to get back to the NFL, and it didn't go well, But
No, I kind of forget about that. That's true. Maybe I could see that maybe coloring people's perceptions too. It's interesting too because Trestman brought in when he was with Montreal at first, and then he was in Toronto. But he's actually a guy that brought in a lot of what I don't know how do I put it, but like a lot of like the high efficiency passes, like a lot of the passes behind the line of scrimmage, and really like those like drop back and you just get it out to that guy because it's the most high efficiency pass completion you have. He brought a lot of that to the CFL, which maybe it's good or bad, I don't know. He in Toronto had Ricky Ray, who was an amazing quarterback. To me, like Ricky Ray, if you go watch his highlights, if you want to know what would Joe Montana look like in the CFL, that was Ricky Ray. Like his touch on the ball, the way he would, not a strong arm, but he had a good reaction and was very smart. But Trestman kind of also was a part of this other trend in the CFL because, even when I first started watching the game 25 years ago, it was a lot of like just like hold on to the ball as long as possible, get that bomb play, a lot of more passing, right? And it's changed now. That I think it's an influence of the college game to a certain degree too. That of what teams run now. But even like in the early 2000s, the Bombers had a bunch of really good teams, several good teams, specifically on offense. And I think it was in 2001, Kahari Jones, who was the quarterback at the time, he threw like 47 touchdowns that year. And we also had Milt Stegall, one of the best wide receivers of all time. But in a recent interview I saw with him, he was on, people should check it out if you want to learn more about CFL. Paul LaPolice, he has a YouTube channel where he just talks about CFL game film and breaks it down. He was a really good offensive coordinator, not the best head coach, but he really is a good offensive mind with it. And he had an interview with Kahari about this. And Kahari Jones even talked about how he said, yeah, that back in 20, 25 years ago, it was about that long bomb play. And like I would hold on to the ball as long as possible so I could get it out. And he paid the price. And he kind of talked about that a little bit because he got hit a lot because of that, right? And kind of shortened his career because his shoulder got fucked and he couldn't throw anymore. But you go back and watch those early 2000 Bombers, it's like it's just open up the floodgates. So like there's even a transition now that the CFL's in, which I don't know if we want to get into, but like, yeah, I think there's a couple different things. Maybe I haven't thought about the Trestman thing. That's not a bad theory that it might have turned people off. But I know Atlanta has also given a lot of guys some shots and stuff like that. To me, watching the CFL and the NFL over the last quarter century, at no time than now do I think the two leagues skill-wise are more intersecting. So maybe we'll see more. Just because of how NFL offenses have changed. I mean, even think about the NFL 25 years ago, what they were running, right? You had guys like Mike Allscott, who was like a fullback who was a star. You don't see that anymore. That's not what anybody does, right?
Yeah, it was dive left, dive right, a nice
Yeah.
out route to the tight end. And if you had like a Tim Brown or a Jerry Rice, you can go down the field. But if not, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, and I'll even just say too, like it's interesting as a Canadian fan watching football because the NFL, because now the first guy to me that I really kind of noticed was Russell Wilson in his prime with Seattle. That was more closer to Carl Weathers and Dwayne The Rock Johnson were both in the CFL. Yeah, I just saw.
Yeah.
Anyway, prime Russell Wilson. That's close to a prototypical CFL quarterback. That more commonly what you'd see. But you see guys now, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Jared Allen. They're closer to the CFL game in terms of what they do, I think, for sure. That's a big switch over from even a decade and definitely 20 years ago, what you even saw in the NFL. But I think, I think there's a bunch of different factors. I mean, the other thing, you can't understate how much every year there's a whole crop of college players coming out of the NCAA, right? So it's like, who's going to give this Canadian guy, the guy that played in Canada, a shot? That's the other thing. And I think I think you guys and the listeners of the show would agree that, the NFL is not a pure meritocracy, right? Like, yeah, at the top level, sure. But after that, it's really, if you get a shot, you get a shot, right? Does it really come down to talent? I don't know. You know what I mean?
No, there's too many people that play the game for everyone to understand where the talent is. There's too many guys in Division III, right, that actually can play at the pro level. That scouts, you can try to quote unquote pound the table all you want, but no one's gonna care.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, in your guys' opinion, how NIL may negatively affect Canadian drafting and signing of players from the States, being that Cam Ward kind of is a guy that I could see 5 years ago being in the CFL, right? Like a Tony Rice kind of guy, right? Like all these guys we're talking about that didn't go to big name schools, maybe only could transfer one time and play at a slightly larger school. But Ward transferred three times?
3 times.
From what we would call Division III, I think, right?
No, he was in the FCS first. So that would be the old 1AA.
That was old 1AA. Yeah, so that's not like we were paying attention to that. And then you go to Washington State, which probably would have been it for most players. And then he gets to shine at one of the top college programs over the last 40 years, which is the University of Miami of Florida.
That's right, because the real University of Miami is in Oxford, Ohio. Okay?
Right? Yeah, like people say the real USC is in South Carolina. I'm like,
no, see, that drives me nuts, dude. Like,
so you know the kind of people I'm talking about. Yeah. Oh God, it's so fucking annoying. So is this going to hurt the CFL because these guys don't have to go there, and the amount of money that they're making in college, they're going to stay in college till they're 30 if they can.
Well, I mean, the thing that the CFL has going for it is that they limit, like Scott and I were talking about while you were away, Jason. They have, I'm pretty sure they're called exports. Each roster can only carry so many American or non-Canadian players, right? And Canada has its own version of the NCAA that kind of governs Canadian collegiate sports. And I would argue that they do it far better than the NCAA does down here. I can see it hurting maybe a little bit, but I could also see players using the CFL as like a bargaining tool, going back to, what we were talking about in the run up to the NFL draft with Shador. Rather than just teams, players saying, I don't want to go play for this, Daddy Archie, and, can you please tell the San Diego Chargers I will not play for them, right? I really think in lieu of that, because these guys are going to be going into the league with pockets full of money already, right? We've already seen with Shador and a couple other players. Like, look at the first round draft pick from the Bengals. They tried to slide some weird contract language into his contract. He and his agent caught it, and he walked out. And he's openly said, "I'm willing to sit a year and re-enter the draft."
Also, he can sit 2 and this is where the CFL to me is really interesting. And this is where does the NFL change this rule? Because we've said so many times on the show, I've written about this for Damage Magazine. I tried to allude to this in the introduction to this show. The NFL is extremely reactionary, and it takes them so long to have their quote unquote mea culpas for the errors of their ways, especially with the black quarterback. It wasn't like Negroes weren't winning in Canada for decades while they were still saying this Randall Cunningham guy has to platoon with Ron Jaworski for a while.
Yeah. Ron can't think anymore. His brain's so rattled and his knees don't work, but he's got to split reps.
If I had to look this up because I remember I was like, I think he platooned with Jaworski that first year, right?
Yeah.
He came in on third downs and he led the league in getting sacked. That's how bad that team was.
Yeah. But I think we could probably see players, Jason, coming out of college, going into bad spots. And let's face it, I don't give a shit what kind of football you like. Everybody knows the Bengals are notorious for being one of the worst franchises in professional sports. They really are. But in a situation like this, if this kid doesn't want to sit out, what can he do? I haven't signed my contract. I'm not going to. He has an agent make a phone call. Hey, I know you guys have a draft where you call dibs on players you're probably not going to get, but I got this dude that just needs one season. Where can we get him in?
Because I think the myth of getting hurt is done.
Yeah.
Remember how many juniors, what was the kid's name, Mac, from your school? Ohio
Marvin
State?
Harrison Jr.
No, the kid from Ohio State that came out a year early. He only played 1 year college football.
Maurice Claret.
Maurice Claret. I think a lot of shit is over.
Yeah.
With NIL because they're like, I can stay till I'm 109 and play and make over 6 figures and keep bouncing around from school to school as long as they'll let me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. Damn injury. And I could see a guy going, well, just go to the CFL. Some owner's going to pony up big money. If you got a big time, we got a first round guy here. We can sell a couple more tickets. We can sell a couple more jerseys. We get a couple more prime time spots. We know what this is about at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know if you saw, Scott, the CFL's new commissioner literally about an hour ago did an interview and said that the league's financial model is not sustainable. And that they have to start looking and leaning into the business side of the sport. Yeah, I mean, Jason, that makes sense to me. And like, if I'm a college player and I'm already like financially set at this point in my life, and I just want to get some game film so I can go back in the NFL draft, and they can't say, well, he hasn't played in a year. You know, look what happens to players when they take time off. Case in point, Deshaun Watson.
Oof.
Right? You go get some game film up in Canada. Yeah, the rules are a little different. There's some nuance to the game, but guess what? It's like Scott said, it's still football. You know?
Well, it has happened before. In the 90s, Rocket Ishmael signed a gigantic contract with the Toronto Argonauts. It was like $10 million at the time. And that was, I think, the John Candy era.
Yeah.
And so he just played one season, but like he had a great season and he goes to the NFL. I don't think he ever really worked out that people thought he would in the NFL, but still, that's an example. And now with CFL teams, there's a very interesting thing with the contracts. This has happened more recently. So if you look at, let's say, Nathan Rourke, quarterback for BC Lions, he's making, $600K a year in his contract or whatever it is. So he's making good money. But part of the contracts, if you read, there's a certain amount for marketing money. And it's kind of a slippery thing because it's whatever the team decides marketing money counts for, but it doesn't count against the cap.
Holy shit.
So it's now, I don't know if the CFL is going to change this or I don't know. And a lot of it kind of depends, I think, on what the team's finances are. So there's a certain amount of money that's like guaranteed. Within that guaranteed money, Nathan Rourke gets like $100K for marketing, and that's why all of a sudden he has a TikTok account. He was never on social media before, and now he's doing TikToks about this is how I train and do my thing, whatever. And so that's interesting. Now the other side of it is that, I mean, the finances of the league. It's funny, like you could rewrite that article every year about the commissioner saying the finances aren't great because it's been like that for a while with the CFL. But interestingly enough, I think right now, business-wise, in terms of if you look at all the owners across the CFL, it's really probably as best as it's ever been.
Yeah, I
Right?
was gonna say, isn't the CFL, and you would know this better than I do, this is probably the most stable the
Big time.
CFL has been in a very long time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, BC's got a new owner, this local millionaire. I don't know where he made his money, Amar Dolan. And he's really pumped a lot of money into BC because they were like always a franchise that was kind of struggling. And then people would always say, like, well, can the CFL compete in a big market like Vancouver? And Amar Dolan's like, hell yeah, we can. Let's just put money into it. Like last year, he brought in 50 Cent for the home opener. This last home opener, he brought in Snoop Dogg.
What?
And, yeah, and
fucking awesome.
And the other great thing about him is what I also found out, it was reported, it's his own money. That's not the team's money. He ponies up his own money to do that. And people bitch and gripe because they're like, well, they had 50,000 people in, but they were just in for the concert. It's like, okay, but if you had 50,000 people who saw the game and paid a ticket, who gives a shit if they leave in the third quarter? You still got 35,000 people there to watch the game. Who cares? Yeah. That's just marketing, you idiots. And the other solid owner is in Quebec, this guy called Pierre Carl Pelado. And he at one point was the leader of the like Bloc Québécois or the kind of Quebec nationalist party in Quebec. So he's like a right-wing Quebec nationalist guy, but he's got deep pockets. The other thing is, and again, for people who don't realize, if you want to talk about a really solid place for football in Canada, it's actually Quebec.
Why so?
I don't know. They have a really strong one. Their college teams are really good. University of Laval out of Quebec and Montreal are really well supported. They're like folk heroes over there. And Quebec produces a lot of good football players. There's a bunch of them in the CFL who are all Quebecois. And you look at the numbers, solid TV numbers. People, it's actually like, like their support for football is actually really good if you look at across Canada. And he has really deep pockets, and he recently bought the Montreal Alouettes with his own money. And he's like, yeah, it's an investment. I want to keep, we want to improve this. And and Montreal was also a place that was always kind of like a little iffy. They have a very small stadium. They play at a university stadium in Montreal. But he's like, he has such deep pockets that he also paid for. Well, I'm sure he got some subsidies, but he ponied up a lot of money to build an NHL style arena in Quebec City in the hopes of eventually getting a team back there. So the dude's like willing to invest.
Yeah, Jason, that's the dude that's really pushing to get Manfred to for Major League Baseball expansion.
I was going to ask, is baseball back?
Yeah.
What happened to that stadium? They just tear it down?
It's Olympic Stadium.
It's still there somehow.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's falling apart.
Yeah.
But
dude, no one uses it for anything.
Isn't that where Dave Dravecky had that freakish arm break?
I think so, yeah. But like when we did the episode on the Olympics,
yeah,
remember Montreal built it, for special purpose events, right? And they rolled over a bunch of loans from that they took out to get the Olympic Games. They didn't finish paying them off until 2008.
Fuck. work.
So they couldn't tear it down while they were still actively paying for it.
And it's just been rotting.
Yeah.
In the conditions for what? 30 years, at least 20 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
When did the Expos leave? The 90s? No, it's like 30 years, right?
Yeah.
I think the Nationals officially had their first year early 2000s.
Okay, it's early.
Because you got to think in the late 90s, they were splitting time between Hiram Bithorn Stadium in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Montreal.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But all this to say, like, there's solid ownership now, I think. And so, yeah, I mean, the business side, maybe there's ways to improve now. Like I was kind of saying in my email to you, Jason, the easiest way to do that, it would obviously be betting. If a league wants to increase revenue quickly.
Can I ask you, Scott?
Yeah.
Is sports betting in Canada anything like it is in the States now, where almost every state has it and it's very app based? So you guys aren't doing that there in Canada? Right
it's app based. You see FanDuel here, they have a spot on it. I mean, I don't watch any hockey, so I can't tell you what hockey's like. So I don't know, but
hockey is FanDuel pilled at this point. They have the interactive, the digitally supplied ads on the rink walls, Jason. Now I watch the Cup finals. So even in Edmonton, man, there was FanDuel shit and DraftKings all over the place.
It was a number of years ago, they made it legal in Canada, and now all the apps have popped up. Now on the CFL broadcasts, you see, again, it's about the betting lines, which I hate. I don't do any of that. I don't, but it is there now. And it's definitely now a revenue stream that maybe that's, to me, where you would expand revenue quickly. That's something you could do quickly, but it's not to the same level. I think just because it's a smaller scale with the CFL, it's not as insane as the NFL, because I recently started watching more of like the NFL coverage like last year, and I wanted to blow my brains out. It was terrible, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing here?
The gambling, and we mentioned this when we started the show, Mac, like gambling in sports, and I'll start it with fantasy sports, ruined sports coverage. It is utter trash. And to see a guy like Rick Perlman on YouTube have his own YouTube channel with like about as many subscribers as we have. Granted, he started it not too long ago, so he'll probably grow at a decent rate. But this is a man that's wrote several best-selling books. And that level of like conversation about sports is all gone. It's just drama, speculation, and betting lines.
Yeah. I hate that we can't watch a game or any kind of coverage without then doing the spread first. Like, break down what's happening this weekend, right? Before you give me the line. I don't give a fuck. Since we're in CFL land, I don't give a shit if the Hamilton Tiger Cats are 3.5-point favorites over the Alouettes. I don't care. I want to hear from the experts what you think the best way to attack the Tiger Cats fucking defense is. That's what I want to hear. I don't give a shit about the betting lines. I don't give a shit who the Vegas favorite is. I don't care. I just don't, And the sad thing is, it's like, all of us are older. We saw this happening with like rotisserie baseball, the buy-ins to do it. And then it became a whole business. You bought the guides to help you conduct your draft better and all this other happy horse shit, man. And, gambling's always been a thing. I don't think any of us can argue that point. But, when it was kind of contained in two spots, essentially the United States, Atlantic City and Vegas, those were the two big sports books. Those were the two legal ones. And when you just see it start to, little by little, states are legalizing it. And then boom. Like, dude, there's FanDuel goddamn billboards, guys, in Fayetteville, North Carolina. This entire town is built on the fucking U.S. military. That's a gamble.
They got money to burn.
I know it's a gamble enough being in the military with who the president is right now.
I mean, look, for those
Now
that
you're
have
gonna-
never been to,
Oh my god.
for those that have never been to Fayetteville, imagine this whole city comprised of pawn shops and strip clubs.
Well, now it's mostly chain restaurants, tattoo parlors, and the pawn shops.
And strip
The strip clubs are going away. Yeah.
He's still my beating heart. Why?
Oh, dude, when Sharky's closed, that was it, man.
What?
When
What are
Sharky's
those guys
closed,
going to do? They're just going to go just to the brothels?
oh, dude, they'll just head up to Raleigh to the good strip clubs. That's all. All right, new guy. Yeah, you're the DD for all 26 of us. So I don't know how you're going to work this logistics wise, but yeah, we're going to the men's club up in Raleigh. You know?
Like, yeah, a good pawn shop. A few places where you can find a good pawn shop. Reno, Nevada, Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Damn good pawn shops.
But I mean, with the what you were talking about with the betting and NIL, like I was thinking about that listening to your episodes on this Beyond the Red Zone, and I was thinking about like what would the effect of the CFL, what would it be, you know? And it remains to be seen, which I think is something to keep track of, you know, because I think it hasn't. I mean, it's there, but not to the same degree.
I was going to say, Scott, have Canadian universities started allowing athletes to earn cash off name, image, likeness?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's a good question, and I don't know.
Are they going to lose guys then to the States? Because again, there's scouts watching kids in Canada. We have a few guys that are Canadian that have played at Division I schools.
I mean,
dude, sure.
look at who the NBA Finals MVP was.
Oh,
Canadian dude.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, because some of the, you know, like it's interesting just because we're not quite there yet, but like definitely people are watching the Canadian college. But how is it going to all play out? I don't know. I mean, one guy that's really interesting that's in the NFL, he signed with he wasn't drafted, but he got signed. He played college in Canada for the Laurier Golden Hawks. His name is Taylor Elgersma, and he is like legit. Like you watch his highlights and stuff like that. Damn, like there's a quarterback. And he did get signed into the NFL, which was a big deal here. The Bombers did draft him. So in a couple of years, if he comes back, we'll get him, which I'll be pretty happy with because he could be the next quarterback. But like,
do you know where he signed? What team he signed with?
Green Bay Packers. So I think he's on the practice roster.
Did Malik Willis stay in Green Bay, Mac?
I believe so, yes. But the thing is, you know how the NFL is. They're going to hoard depth at the most important position on the field. Yeah. And see, like for me, this is something I've argued is players who maybe are practice squad guys are maybe lower on the roster. I think it would serve them better to play in Canada or like the UFL because you can get game film, right? You can have actual film of you competing against other players, like in a meaningful milieu, so to speak. And when you get down to it, look at Cameron Wake. That guy turned, 4 years in Canada into a pretty good NFL career. Yeah. And that's part of the reason he went up there. I wasn't going to have good opportunities in the States to begin with. I wanted to play football. I went to Canada because I knew I would be able to play right off the bat. And he parlayed that into a very successful NFL career.
Very successful NFL career.
And like, I think that is probably, I would rather see players do that than just go sit, because some guys aren't going to get a shot. Somebody in chat said Mike Piazza. The only reason we know who he is because his dad was friends with Tommy Lasorda. Mike Piazza was a nobody coming out of high school.
It's crazy when you think about baseball players because that draft is so large. And you think about industries around ball players. I was watching Cal Ripken's son. Did his son ever play in the majors, Mac?
No.
Are you sure?
No, I don't think so.
His son has a podcast, and he had Will Clark on his show. And that was my favorite player.
I know,
in the
that's your
world.
boy, man. Will the Thrill.
Will Clark could have called my mom the N-word, and I would have been like, "What did she do?"
Yeah, Mom, what did you say to Will Clark?
What did you say to Will Clark to make him say that to you? And I thought about how I invested in Will Clark baseball cards. Like that was I remember my father begrudgingly took me to a massive baseball card show at the Moscone Center. Because baseball cards to me is the intro drug to gambling.
Oh, or just like collecting on a hoarding level.
Yes.
Right.
Mac, I hoarded. Okay. Anyone watching this show that's at least in their 40s has done this. Will Clark baseball cards were going to be my ticket to college.
Oh, yeah.
That and the coveted Ken Griffey Upper Deck rookie.
Yeah, see, that's what completely devalued my comic book collection.
Speculative buyers.
No, speculative buyers that thought, you know what, this is it. I'm going to buy 12 of these issues. They're worth so much. And then they tried to sell them, flood the market, and just the value just.
And this is what's crazy. It's not like Will Clark was a bad player.
No, for a guy that looked like a dude that would be your uncle at like the family reunion that just sits there cracking Miller Lights all night, I'd say he was pretty good.
You know, he had that 1 year in '89 where he had like 130 ribbies. He hit like he almost hit for the crown, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, Will Clark is just his card is going to be worth $1 million because he himself has the best swing in baseball,
the most manly
chin.
Yeah, you know,
like that guy's got a Buzz Lightyear chin,
constantly covered in dip spit because his chin stuck out so far when he spit it just hit the.
Oh man, and you're like, this is base, and I got that. You know, I got a Todd Van Poppel. I got a who else did I have? I had a Wally Joyner.
Oh man,
I was like, dude, I can buy this whole block, and that's the way I looked at it. But what's funny is if you are around people that are card collectors, much like the gambling, you're like, well, Will Clark sucks. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? First of all, calm down.
Put some respect on his name.
Can you please put some respect on his name? The first swing he ever took in the major leagues, he took Nolan Ryan yard. Come on. But that's how we value. If it doesn't have a monetary value, then it sucks.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a problem for the CFL? Because what you're saying, Mac, is the value is in your footage. And these kids are like, I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's words coming out of your mouth.
Are you speaking Greek?
But those words aren't telling me the value, because the only thing I can see is if I go to this place, maybe they give me $1 million, but that's a lot that they're probably not going to. So I'm going to make less money. I'm going to automatically be in an environment that I assume is going to be racist because I've never been there, right? It's going to be full of white people. And I'm assuming this because I've never been there, right? I don't know a lot of black people taking vacations to Halifax. Maybe they are. I don't know. I've never been one to do that. We got to take the kids to Moose Jaw. They got to learn the Badlands of Canada. Like, no, that's not a real, you're right.
Probably a lot of racism in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
I spent the night in Moose Jaw. No one called me the N-word, but I have driven through certain parts of the United States where they couldn't wait to say it. They were like, oh man, one's coming. Good God, yes. Never.
They like pull up their belt too, Jason. They're like, oh man,
like, woo-hoo.
This is a great Thursday night.
Oh man, is he pulling over? Is he pulling over? Oh, don't lynch him. Just call him nigger a few times. It'll be great. Drive by. Give him a drive-by N-word.
You can hear the hard R like for a mile after. Just
Like
ringing in your ears. Oh.
Oh man.
Yeah, dude. Like, so I can see them being frightened because again, you're not giving them a value.
Dude, I was shocked when I looked at the EFL stats today because I follow them on Instagram and they just put the things up. Dude, literally the 4 of the top 10 for rushing touchdowns all played at D1 schools. You know, I think I agree with you, right? But I think as the game kind of matriculates overseas or gains in popularity, honestly, I think what is killing the CFL in the States right now is the same thing that killed the American expansion, was just there's little to no TV coverage. But as we see this sport matriculate in whatever shape or form it's in, right? Whether it's Canadian rules or American rules, we're seeing kind of like what happened with basketball, right? There are more American players overseas than we've probably seen in our lifetime because it gives them a chance to play games and it gives them an avenue to get back into the NBA.
And you know what they're doing, Mac? They're making documentaries. China goes, "We love you, colored man. Here's a gold fucking statue of you and your big black cock."
Well, yeah, there's that. And Stephon Marbury is still like wildly popular in
He is
China.
on Instagram with his Chinese wife laughing at everybody in the States. He's like, he wants to see the statue of a big black cock again.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
yeah, Scott's like, we were going pretty well, and then the dick joke started.
Well, I mean, you're right though in that. I mean, the TV and the marketing is still, it's just not up to par. I think, like, even a lot of the stuff we're talking about, go find that stuff readily available online for people to see. Like when people see Damon Allen and Tracy Ham, like Tracy Ham played with in the CFL for a number of different teams, but he rushed for 1,000 yards in 1989 as a quarterback, which was 17 years before Vic did it. And he did it the next season after as well. So the dude put up crazy stats, and when you watch the film, you're like, oh, okay, this is like, I see where this is coming from. But find stuff on the internet readily available, right? So the conversation in Canada is always rule changes to make it more like the NFL, ergo it'll be more popular. But secondary leagues have never worked out in that way. And there's a lot of debate about it, but I don't even want to get into some of the asinine debates that happen around the rule changes. And I'm not against rule changes. It's just, what are we doing it for? But my point is, though, is the one thing the CFL, if it's going to emulate anything from the NFL, I think, is look at the success of NFL films and how important NFL films was to the growth of that league, building the mythology and the lore around that league. The CFL needs its equivalent, because there's these stories, like I was telling you about that Johnny Bright. That's an amazing story. The guy became a well-loved community figure in Edmonton. Like, that's a great story. Look at
you have to invest in that though. And
yeah,
I don't know.
But the thing is, it's an investment, and rather than the quick dollars of betting and let's just try to get a big TV contract, or however way we can do it.
Is there any kind of big money that could go and support, like, we'll say CFL films? That's a Canadian.
Have the Sables do it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. Like, as much as the CFL always talks about crying poverty, the thing is, like I said, BC Lions owners got a lot of money. Pierre Carapelgo's got a lot of money. Toronto Argonauts are owned by Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment.
Yeah, that's the same organization that owns the Blue.
Yeah. Billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. You're telling me they can't pool money in? The Calgary Flames ownership group also owns the Stampeders. They also own the Flames. There's money there. It's whether or not they want to actually do that investment. And I don't know what's going to do it to convince them. I don't know. But it's not as if there isn't money there already. I mean, like Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment alone could subsidize it all they want if they really wanted to do it. But I don't know if they want to do it or not, because, the attitude, and it came up in the pandemic, because the CFL didn't have a season in 2020. And my featureless room. This is a new house. We just bought this house, so we're still in the process of decorating. So
Scott's just like, damn, man, I haven't even had time to paint.
Anyway, it's been about a month in the house. So anyway, but like, what was I going to get at now? I knew the chat would get me watching this. I knew the chat would derail. So anyway, the 2020, the pandemic. It's interesting. It came out after, but there was a vote amongst the owners about doing like a bubble season. And the ones that voted against it were, at the time, Toronto, Montreal, but they were different owners, but they had connections to Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, and I believe Calgary. All the other teams agreed to do some kind of shorter bubble season in 2020. They didn't want to do it. And then all of a sudden, in the midst of the pandemic, the CFL commissioner at the time, Randy Ambrosie, comes out and says, "Oh, we're going to merge with the XFL. It's going to be a great thing." And everyone's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
What? And then no clarity. And then Ambrosie goes, "Oh, we're just talking about talking." And you're like, "What?" And then what the fuck does that even mean? And then
Ambrosie putting that out, Scott, really kind of threw me for a loop, because you've got the XFL, which is on its third iteration at that point, or second iteration. That was Vince's baby still. I read that and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how they struggled doing quick fixes when they did the American expansion in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And we both know it was very financially driven, to try and plus up a lot of the shitty owners that are no longer there in the CFL. But then it was Ambrosie walking back, and then Vince goes, "Yeah, it's a scheduling agreement." Oh, what? Okay, are we talking about like the CFL champ against the XFL champ? That would be pretty cool, right? Then it was, we're going to have in-season games against each other. Okay, how's that going to affect, like just the playoffs? Hey, man, Dizzle, I live everything I owns in one room. Okay, leave me alone.
Hilarious.
And it's always Dizzle and Kush get me all the time.
Yeah,
so
both of them.
Like
sons of bitches. Yeah. Hilarious.
But then it kind of fizzled pretty quick, right? And I just, like, as a lover of non-traditional football, whether it's the XFL, the UFL, the original UFL, the CFL, the Alliance of American Football, which was completely undone by sports gambling, because what they did is develop an app that allowed you to track every player, every play. And Charlie Ebersol was like, okay, my league's struggling. I can barely make payroll. I can sell this to MGM. And MGM's going to give me a shit ton of money, and I keep my league going. And that's when Tom Dundon, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, was like, I'll give you $250 million, never expecting to really keep the league afloat, let it go bankrupt, and he can go and get that app, that gambling app, on the cheap. Well, it ended up going back to MGM, so Dundon was pretty pissed. No, Trey, God damn it. But like, I couldn't imagine what CFL fans were thinking.
But like the other layer of all this is when that was floated, And again, think about the implication here. Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, who owns the Argos, said no to a season in 2020. This XFL thing starts making the rounds. And Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment is also heavily intertwined with TSN, which is our ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, it's wall-to-wall propaganda on TSN. Oh, this is going to save the CFL, this XFL thing. And you're like, what do we need to be saved? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they put out the propaganda and they're like, well, the CFL has no money. And you're like, what? But like at the time, there was owners with deep pockets. At the time there was 3 community-owned teams. Edmonton is now privately owned, but Edmonton, Saskatchewan, and Winnipeg were all posting good profit. At least for CFL standards, they were posting a profit, and they had rainy day funds. And you're like, well, what are you talking about? And then you saw this in the media, and they're like, oh, well, it's going to be the best thing, and they have deep pockets. You're like, Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment has more money than anyone in the XFL. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, this is bullshit. This is utter nonsense. But I think those 2 new owners, Amar Dolan for the BC Lions in interviews, if you read between the lines, he's clearly calling out some of the other owners because they talk about how he's pushing the BC Lions and all this stuff. And forget how he worded it, but you can see like he's kind of taking a shot at the other owners. He's like, yeah, we want to spend money because we believe in investing in the product because it's a good product. And he goes, I forget how he worded it, but he's like, some people expect, to like just not invest and then still have good results. Like that's just not how this works. The guy in Montreal, Pierre Pelledo, is very quiet. He doesn't say much in the media, which I have a feeling it means that he's got all kinds of little things cooking. But again, like Quebec is pretty strong football. Like when University of Montreal and Laval in Quebec City play each other, it's like a huge game. Like people tailgate at 6 a.m. It's a huge thing.
Jesus Christ.
As one should for a big rivalry.
Yeah, and there's a few big Canadian college rivalries, and that's one of them. And they are real. And there's been guys from University of Montreal and Laval who just get straight drafted in the NFL. Happens all the time. They're good programs. But like that whole XFL thing kind of showed what some people are kind of wanting, which I think in a lot of ways is kind of the NHL model, right? Which is they did this big expansion, basically to the southern United States to get a TV contract, which hasn't materialized. And meanwhile, you're adding all these teams, which, I think inevitably will kind of water down the product. And there's still not a major TV deal. Now they show some games on Amazon Prime. It's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't follow a lot of hockey, but I'm just saying this is from my friends who follow hockey are telling me this. I saw my buddy Doug in the chat there. But it's kind of the same model because I think what they're chasing is that NFL thing because the NFL makes so much money off their TV contracts. The rest of it is kind of just gravy. And I think that's what people are shooting for, but I don't think it's practical for especially not the CFL. It's just not the business model.
I mean, the biggest thing that goes into the NFL TV model, right, is that we have a million channels all bidding against themselves in order to air the NFL, right? It's the same thing with college footballs. You have, like in college sports for the big schools, you have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 rights. So like I'm an Ohio State fan. When they play like Bowling Green, that's a tier 3 game. It's going to be streamed on Peacock. Like you are not catching that shit on TV, right? Unless you have multiple outlets bidding against themselves to drive the price up, you're not going to have that. And the thing is, Canada, you have TSN, which is great, but then you also have state-owned networks. You have, the big corporate networks. You have all those, but they're not really bidding against each other for the right to carry CFL games. But I think that goes hand in hand with a lot of the issues we're seeing with professional sports, right? Like franchise valuations keep going through the roof. And a lot of people get into sports thinking I can buy this team and it's going to make me money, right? And the thing is, you have to look at the league you're in. The CFL is not a sport or not, it's not a league where you buy into and just put your hand out and you're like, where's my check?
No.
It's not that kind of league,
Yeah.
It's just like why, people are shocked that you have stupidly wealthy people that are buying into like the fourth level of English football now. Well, it's because it's a cheap way for them to get their foot in the door without having to spend like $1 billion plus on a franchise, And honestly, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, we could blame them for this as well with Welcome to Wrexham, essentially spending their way through 3 levels of English football, but that's a discussion for another time. But like I love the fact that there are some ownership groups in the CFL that are willing to put some money up finally to put good teams out there. Because I think that was probably, a big issue late 80s, early 90s, early 2000s. You would have the smaller teams in the CFL that would develop players. And then the minute that they got the fuck out of Dodge because either the front office was a mess, the ownership group was a mess, or they knew, yeah, I could sign a new contract and spend the rest of my life here, but it's going to be for pennies on the dollar compared to what I can make in like Montreal or Toronto or some other more financially stable organizations. And you saw teams like Toronto kind of hoard, the cream of the crop as far as the CFL goes on their rosters. So it made for kind of a top heavy league at certain points.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot more parity, and the other big change, I think, which also is really amazing to see, is that when I first started watching the CFL, like you talk about, there's the Canadian American contingents of how many players they can have. When I first started watching, it was mostly like the kickers, the punters, the O linemen were all Canadian, and then there was some other guys sprinkled in there, but not the main guys.
Yeah.
But now that's not the case at all. The Canadians are all over in every position. We now got Canadian quarterbacks, which was like a pipe dream 20 years ago, and they're just going to get better because I think overall the athletes just at a baseline are just better than they were 20, 25 years ago. They're just that much better. Even just coming out of college, I think, in terms of what this pure athleticism and also just like how they understand the game, I think is just that much better. So the Canadian talent has just, now a lot of some of the quote unquote skill positions a lot of them are Canadian. Right. And that was more of a rarity, not that long ago. And so that changes things, I think, a little bit, because who gets that shot, how they can, because you also have to think about roster construction, because if that starting Canadian gets hurt, you have to keep that ratio across your team. And now you got to move stuff around. That's why, I think the jobs of CFL GMs and scouts are that much harder than doing it in the NFL, because you got to have that right amount and manage that well. So that's another factor, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But Canadian talent is just miles ahead of what it was.
The CFL really needs to do, like, take a page out of the NBA's book, start marketing your personalities, right?
Yeah.
I give the NBA a lot of credit for that. They put their players out there first and foremost. Really let's lean into these guys. They play a team sport, but they're the big names on the roster, right? I think especially now that Canadian players are they're starting to star at like running back, wide receiver, quarterback, those glamour positions, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
As they're getting out there, they're putting up stats. Those are the guys you have front and center,
Yeah.
the Eggersma, like, yeah, dude, part of his contract is marketing, so he's going to start a TikTok. Cool, man. Then you put that shit out on your team official stuff.
Yeah.
Let them know where to follow them. Like, that's how you hook kids, man. Kids are into personalities. Or young, younger adults, man. They want
Yeah.
somebody that they can connect with.
Yeah.
They don't
Well,
need a dude like me, that looks like me, who's head coach. That's
yeah.
just like, yeah, man, we played really good ball today.
Yeah. Well,
Pierre had a hell of a day out there. Great job. Like they
well, I
don't
mean,
they don't want to see me.
yeah,
They want to see
exactly.
Eggersma.
Yeah. Or Nathan Rourke or like
Yeah.
Trey Ford and these guys. But even, another good example is with the Bombers. The last two running backs we've had, Andrew Harris and now Brady Oliveira. They both came from Winnipeg, both played their high school ball here. Andrew Harris he went through the Canadian junior football. He never was in U Sport, and then he kind of came in BC and Hall of Fame running back, one of the better running backs I've ever seen play. And then we have Brady Oliveira, who's like, he just won MVP, MOP, or most outstanding Canadian or whatever. But he's from here, and what he does in the off season is he's like rescuing dogs in Indonesia because that's his big cause. And it's like, what a fucking marketable dude.
Yeah.
Like he's all about rehabilitating and saving dogs, and he's your star running back who also happens to be from Winnipeg. And you're like, he's a bona fide star, and like he is definitely the centerpiece in Winnipeg now. And I'm sure he gets money I'm sure maybe he would even say that in his contract now. Like, hey, look at my Instagram. I think he probably has more followers than some CFL teams on Instagram just because of his dog content.
Yeah.
You're like, give me money for that, man. Come on. You know what I mean? Like,
I think how the CFL keeps shooting itself in the foot is in the league office. They rarely, if ever, bring in new eyeballs to the issues, right? Like you said, these teams have money, but the league's always like, bro, we have nothing. Like the commissioner's pulling his pockets out of his pants. He's like, look, we're poor.
yeah.
But it's always some guy that was a former player, former team exec, former general manager. It's always somebody that's connected with the league. And I understand you want some kind of continuity there, but at a certain point, if you're looking for growth, right? And we're not talking like, I'm with you. If I'm a league, I want to last. I want the long run. I don't want short term. Short term stuff's nice, but it could dry up tomorrow. Case in point again, the American expansion. How quickly did that expansion money disappear? Quicker than shit.
Yeah.
Right? But how do we build long-term success? And sometimes you need a new set of eyeballs. And it's like the league office just doesn't. They're like, no, we need a CFL guy. It's like colleges down here. No, we want an Ohio State guy to coach Ohio State.
Right.
Well, if this dude sucks, right, then we don't need him.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just how I feel about it. You need. I'm with you, Zahir. I'm with you.
I mean, it's like there's always I think that marketing part of it is really what the CFL can do, because once kids start seeing that, and the other thing too is like, I know a lot of teams, definitely the Winnipeg Blue Bombers should be commended. They do a lot for youth football here in Winnipeg. They pay for equipment. They fund flag football leagues. They have like a youth football night where all the kids come, and all, like, they do a lot. So like they do a lot to do that. So I don't know about every other team, but like that's the way you hook them, because you have this behemoth NFL, but these CFL players are guys you can actually interact with in your community.
Yeah.
Who can be at the game saying, hey, hi, I'm star of the. You can meet these guys; they're real people, and there's definitely marketable people. I mean, he's not Canadian, but the defensive end for Winnipeg, Willie Jefferson, is a awesome character, great player. He's a defensive end. I think he's like 6'7", and he's got this gigantic wingspan. He leads not so much sacks, but like in pass knockdowns, because literally, like I've seen it before, where an old lineman is blocking him, and he'll just reach out his other hand and just block the pass. If the quarterback doesn't put enough air on it, he'll just be like bonk, or he'll just pluck the ball out of the air. But he's also a character. He's also a great guy and seems like a lot of fun. It's like, yeah, get that guy out in the community. And they can do that with the marketing money piece. They can say, okay, here's this money. The marketing money is we want this on social media. And also maybe there's so many dates in the community that you're expected to do. And I think that's cool. There's nothing, that's the way the league will grow, is because if you get those kids early and they can actually meet these guys, like, a young football fan in Winnipeg, young kid, what's the chance they're ever going to meet Patrick Mahomes in person? Like,
yeah,
probably never.
Yeah, you're gonna meet his brother before you meet him.
Yeah, but hey, there's these other players that you can look up to, just like I did when I was watching the CFL. As much as there's NFL players I love too, but like these are guys I watched on the field play, and like they were like superheroes to me growing up.
Oh, dude, yeah, John Elway is still a superhero to me.
Oh, yeah, wow, yeah, Elway.
I mean, if he flew in here right now, again, someone else calling him on the N-word, be John Elway. It's okay. John Elway and Will Clark could have a buddy cop movie where they just say the N-word to.
And Jason's gonna go see it in theaters 28 times.
Have you guys seen the most racist movie ever starring John Elway and Will Clark? Oh, I love
it. There was a guy in the early 2000s, a running back, Charles Roberts, and he didn't even play quite 10 years, maybe 9 years, but he was 5'6", 177 pounds, so like way too small for the NFL at the time. Kind of like a Darren Sproles type. But at the time, there's just no way he would ever get a shot. He comes from California. I think Sacramento State is where he played. He comes up to Canada, and he just destroys people with his speed and agility. He just breaking guys' ankles. By his 6th year in the league, he already had 8,000 rushing yards.
Damn.
Yeah, and he was just killing people. If you go look up Charles Roberts, and he's a small dude. And so I would watch him play on Sunday, or when, not on Friday nights, or when Saturdays, Bomber games. And you would just watch this guy pull this shit off where like there's 3 guys coming at him, and he just like somehow does his magic, and like then he's off for a touchdown. You're like, how did he even do that? But the best thing about this guy, and this actually tells you, I think, a little bit about the difference with the CFL, because he was as good as he was and as gifted as he was, he never trained in the off season. In fact, I know people because they worked at the bar he frequented. His off-season regimen was he would sit around, drink cognac, play VLTs, and smoke.
Was he a person of color by any chance?
Yes. Yes, he was. He's a person of color. And there's stories of him where he was late for games because he was going through the McDonald's drive-thru on the way to the game.
I respect it.
But go look at Charles Roberts. Go look up his career numbers.
I mean, can we just admit something here? I'm sure just to the chagrin of a lot of people, Canadian McDonald's is a magical place. First of all,
it's a lot better. Yeah,
you feel like, am I healthier? I just had a spinach feta wrap for breakfast. I feel healthier.
Well, Scott, I think the important question that we have to ask about the CFL. Are the Schooners ever going to be a team? Now, for everybody that's wondering, the CFL has been at 9 teams for a little bit, but they've always had this grand plan of expanding into the provinces that are on the Atlantic Ocean. So places like Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, places like that.
Places that have their own time zone.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been hearing about this since probably right after the American expansion blew up in everybody's face, was that we're putting another Canadian team in, and it's going to be in the Maritime provinces. One of them. We don't know which one. And we're going to call it the Schooners.
Mm-hmm.
And is it going to happen? Is it ever going to happen?
So this was a big thing that the former commissioner was pushing, and they had a plan in place, they had some money in place, but then COVID hit. And all that stuff just dried up. And it was last year or 2 years ago, someone interviewed the mayor of Halifax, and he's like, no, it's just we can't unless someone's going to pony up a bunch of money. Like right now we're dealing with housing crisis and homeless. Like there's just we can't, no, it's just not on the table. And so unfortunately, I think for now, all that money all those plans kind of evaporated. It would be great. I mean, to get a 10th team in. Some people talk about Quebec City, maybe, but my understanding is the University Laval doesn't really want that to happen. So maybe that's why it won't. But I'd love to see it. But I think COVID might have killed it for a while because all that money it's just also building stadiums in Canada is just not the same as in the States. It's just kind of a different ball game. It's just not the same thing. So unfortunately, there were some plans, but I don't think it's going to happen, which is too bad. I'd love to see another team.
Yeah, I was curious about that because I know 10 makes scheduling a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like scheduling with an odd number is awful. And I know Quebec City is probably off the map, not just because Laval University, but because Quebec City, they're in the running for NHL expansion. And let's face it, you and I both know that that's what they want more than anything.
For sure.
And I don't blame them. They got ripped off. A year after they left Quebec City, they win a Stanley Cup in fucking Denver. Like that one's got to hurt. Yeah. But you know, I always wondered what other area could support, you know, a CFL team. Because you got to think BC, you've got, you know, Vancouver's there, but they've got a team. You got Winnipeg and Calgary. Toronto and Hamilton aren't that far away, but it's like my buddy explained it to me. Like they're close in proximity, but it's like two different worlds.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I went to Hamilton last year for a game, and it's definitely different. You know, I mean, you know, like for expansion, I don't, you know, in Canada, I mean, maybe Ontario could conceivably, you know, hold another team. There's a lot of speculation about that. There's also like maybe somewhere on the mainland of BC if they did it right, not necessarily on the island, but somewhere further in if they did it. The other thing too is, you know, maybe an American expansion would work if it was one place. I don't know, but I don't know. St. Louis,
Sacramento.
Yeah, St. Louis also got burnt by the NFL. Oakland, maybe Portland.
I was going to say Portland.
St. Louis has been the only UFL team to average more than 25,000 fans. The next closest one averages 16.
Interesting. I didn't know.
They came out for the Battlehawks when they were in the XFL. Mm-hmm. They stayed after the merger. Like St. Louis loves football. Like, you know, period. Cam Loops for expansion.
you know, like maybe there's, you know, I mean, I know in the 90s with the American expansion, you know, Baltimore was the most successful on and off the field. But I was also reading that apparently, fairly consistently, Shreveport, Louisiana had fairly decent attendance.
They did. But did you hear about the background behind the team, though?
No.
Okay, that owner who owned the Shreveport Pirates was trying to buy the franchise in Ottawa. Right? So because he was a Canadian guy and he just wanted to get back home because he's like, fuck Shreveport. It's hot.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
sticking to everything right now. This is not for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so he stopped paying his bills in Shreveport. And eventually the parish sheriff came out, chained up the stadium with all their uniforms, their pads, everything in it, and said that the state was seizing it due to non-payment of the bills.
Amazing. Jesus.
Right?
Yeah.
So 3 weeks later, he works a deal, sells Shreveport to some poor guy in Louisiana. Like literally, it was like a dude who owned a trucking company or something. And he gets the dibs on the Ottawa franchise.
Oh.
Where he then took the Ottawa Rough Riders, then ran them into the ground until they were disbanded, and then started again as the Ottawa Red Blacks under a whole new ownership group.
Yeah.
So
what is a red black? So Dre keeps asking what's a red black.
Well, I was just going to say, so red and black is basically just the colors for all Ottawa sports teams. So there's already like in Quebec, there's a college team, the Rouge et Or, red and black. So they just kind of ran with that red and black. Just the Red Blacks. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and you got to think they had two Rough Rider teams. One that was just one word, and then one that was two words.
Well, yeah, and then the Ottawa team was named after a type of soldier.
Yeah.
Is what it was. Something to do with the like Teddy Roosevelt and the
Rough Riders,
the American War. That's what they were actually named after, which is whatever. Okay.
Yeah, it's odd that we have a Teddy Roosevelt reference in an Canadian-based sports team.
Yeah. But like I don't know, like the whole American expansion, there'd be a lot of different things you'd have to figure out of how it could work. Maybe in one city, maybe it could work. I don't know. I mean, the other thing of it is Ontario potentially, just because of the population, like maybe put a team in Windsor or something. I don't know, but
oh, dude, I'll tell you what. If they put a team in Windsor, dude, I'll go to Detroit. Something I really don't like doing because it's in a fucking place I hate called Michigan. But I would cross the bridge, get fucking silly drunk, and watch every game I coach.
Oh, amazing! Yeah. So it's like the 10th team would be great, but I think right now it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. But,
I would love to see a team in Oakland, though. I mean, I think Oakland would go ape shit.
Oh,
man.
dude, absolutely.
If they had football, you got that empty stadium. Don't talk about rebuilding the new one. Just fill that empty stadium.
Plus it up. And the thing is, the Coliseum in Oakland, Jason, is big enough to encompass that field. That was the issue during the American expansion because they played in smaller college stadiums and they couldn't take the whole field. So they had
a lot of sideline. Yeah,
they had to have hybrid rules and stadium or field dimensions.
Yeah,
but
like the Oakland, that's one I thought of. I'd love to see that. I mean, I was a Raiders fan back in the day, late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, it's just not the same with them being in Vegas. I just can't really.
I don't know who those people are.
It's just not the same, I just can't. I liked the Raiders and the mystique and all the shit with it in Oakland, but I just can't. I can't get behind that.
No. Yeah, I mean that. I think you'd have to go into places that have been abandoned by the NFL, or like the game would be the only one in town.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I think that would work, and we've seen, we have, smaller leagues like Major League Rugby, which is actually taking off. Their playoffs are going to be on ESPN. They've kind of caught fire in places where, they have like minor league baseball teams. Like they play in bigger, they have like bigger metro area names, but they play like towards the burbs, so they didn't go into big stadiums. They kept it very small, very kind of, I guess, more intimate confines, if you will. And the league's taking off. We're seeing, look at the WNBA. We're seeing the growth in the WNBA now. That's ridiculous. Like the the Valkyries, Jason.
The Valkyries. When I was in the city, dude, I went to this cupcake place that's by the stadium. Like you have to go to the stadium to go to this cupcake place. That shit was packed with dudes.
Did you see the valuation for the franchise already?
No.
After like 10 games, $500 million.
There were
500
so
million.
many like young people going there. Like I said, just dudes. Like remember before the
Amazing.
WNBA was just like a bunch of girls that played like club basketball and their moms.
Yeah.
No, it's an event. You go to the fucking games.
Yeah, dude. And I love it. Like, I think, you know, we're getting to the point where it's not just like only sports made in America. That's the ones we're going to watch. And we're not going to watch nothing else. Fuck it.
Mhm.
You know, but we're starting to see like this embrace, you know, of what, no matter what anybody in chat has to say compared to last week, we're embracing football, you know, European football. We're embracing rugby. We're embracing a lot of different sports, and the CFL could easily be that because there is an outlet. Like people want to watch this shit. That's why they watch the draft coverage, and people like sit there and they're like, "You got any more of them spring games?" You know, like, and it's
That
you
should
know,
be the ad campaign.
it really, yeah, you know, like people want something to do, and like we're like in kind of the dead zone of American sports, of the American sports calendar. Like it's just baseball right now. And I love baseball. Jason enjoys the sport. A lot of people don't, you know?
Well, because I think Scott was right about the myth building of NFL films.
Mhm.
And I grew up with two things because ESPN was not the 24-hour behemoth that it was in the early 80s. NFL films. The day before Super Bowl, they played every NFL film Super Bowl thing.
On the frozen tundra, the
Oh.
Lambeau Field.
Love it.
And Bot Staub was ready to go for the Green Bay Packers.
And it's just Star with like his single bar helmet like tilted up and he's smoking a cigarette. Like,
everyone, would Len Dawson be victorious on this Sunday afternoon? Like that. And then This Week in Baseball. I loved This Week in Baseball. This Week in Baseball actually has its own YouTube channel with tens of thousands of views for each episode. I mean, 1981, Pete Rose going for 2.
yeah. You know, I mean, and there is so much to that, right? Like, because if you want people to get familiar, and like Scott, you fucking know this as well as any of us, like the mythos of the league. Like, go talk to a sports fan. They're gonna be like, "Yeah, I love this new dude." But did you know that a guy named Hiram Schrempner in 38 ran for 240 yards and 1/2 for the Canton Bulldogs? You know, like there's always that one dude in our sports group that pulls that shit out.
Mhm.
And the mythos is everything, man. Like
Yeah.
it really is. And
Yeah.
I just, especially now where you can digitize everything and you don't have
Mhm.
to have a massive warehouse for your film, why you wouldn't do that? Like literally the CFL can hire a director of films, right? Like the head of the department, and then have 2 fucking like interns there. And they're like, "Hey man, all you're doing is putting this video and digitizing it.
Yep.
Fuck it. Let's go."
There's you know how many aspiring directors can't wait to have that job? Like
Jason, I have pitched making a documentary about the CFL expansion in the United States to like 6 giant networks. And they all told me no. Everyone.
That's a
So
great story. It's an
but you have
awesome
to
story.
pitch it to who's the guy that used to do 30 for 30 that's got his own thing now. I can't think of his name.
I know, but dude, I was in a documentary with people that have a background. All they've done their entire life before that documentary was sports. And I'm like, "Can you hook me up with some folks?" They're like, "Yeah, call this guy, call this guy, call this guy, call this guy." I called all of them, and they're like 2 of them are like, there was CFL expansion.
Well, I mean, there's also a really great YouTube channel. They changed their names. I think it's called Secret Base now, and they do like beef history between these 2 players. They'll do this rewind series where they go back. They cover football, baseball, basketball. And it's really great. It's really well done. And it's sort of like that history piece. And like, man, there's so many great stories in the CFL. You know, there was that, what was it? Maybe it was 97 Grey Cup. I think it was Edmonton and Toronto. And one of the guys basically, it was like, field was all snowy, typical Canadian Grey Cup. and he like makes this crazy catch where it like bounces off of his foot and he still like catches it in the snow. It's like there's marketable shit this league has. It's just like, just do that. And you can't tell me that that's like, as much as the league wants to cry poverty, you tell me that you, like you said, a director and 2 interns, just start pumping stuff out. Just start pumping it out, man. Like whatever, and do shorter things for TikTok and Instagram. Like you can't tell me that's out of the realm for the league to do. You know what I mean?
I've gone down the fucking rabbit hole of watching the old This Week in Baseball from the 80s. Let's check out this. It's
going to be funny when Jason pops off at the end of the summer when the league year starts. Scott, he's like, "Hey, man, I'm now an Argonauts fan. I'm just letting you know."
That's fine. Okay, all right.
Hey, we have to watch this 3 generations of black quarterbacks in Canada real quick.
Okay.
All-time leading passer. Ford over the top in the middle. Ford's got a touchdown.
Like, I'm happy to be Canadian. That's how it is. As long as I play my game and I play it well, I think I'll get a shot.
Oh, that guy fucks. Trey Ford, he gets laid all the time.
When you came to Canada, came north, win a Grey Cup, as soon as you get here, if I were to tell you at that time, in a couple decades from now, you're going to be sitting amongst this company having this conversation, what would you have thought?
Well, I don't know what I would have thought, because when I came to Canada, things were very acceptable for me here. Trace probably going through a different thing because he has to deal with the fact that people may say he's a Canadian as a quarterback and not have the opportunity. That's his issue. Whereas coming to Canada, it removed the wall barrier when it was totally acceptable. Said, we want you. There was no issue. I'm thinking, wow, this is different. This is a country, first of all, that accepts me for who I am, not for what I should be.
When I get here in 1985, didn't know about Mr. Ely, didn't know about Bernie Custis, coming in 1951, the first quarterback. But when I get here, now I meet Conrad Holloway, I meet J.C. Watts, Turner Gill, Warren Moon, and all these guys that I've seen on television and watched in college. And when I get here, I mean, like I said, I already have the mindset of this is a league that wants me here, wants me to play quarterback. That allows you to free you up in your mind, and you go out there and play the position that I've been playing since I was 7.
What's it mean to you that these guys went through some struggles to liberate you from the fact of being able to play and not have to really think about it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have to thank them a ton because they made the path so much easier for me. I don't have to go through what they went through. They went through 10 times worse than I, probably even more. I mean, they definitely took a lot of weight off of my shoulders. So,
but I would encourage, most quarterbacks of color is to dive into the history, have a great understanding. The history is not for you to be bitter, but it's to make you better. But it also gives you the mindset of what kind of mental toughness that you need to deal with, because you're going to deal with some things that not only.
What's so crazy to me about Damon Allen is he won at literally every level, like Pee Wee football. He excelled. He did go to a small football school, but he put up massive numbers. And when you look at his size at 6'1", I mean, Joe Montana is barely 6 feet.
Yeah.
So let's not act like 6'1" is small. Who was a quarterback in 85? Let's think about the starters back in 85. So you got Montana, Phil Simms. Who else is a starter in 85?
Ken Anderson?
No.
Boomer
Esiason is there.
Yep, Boomer was there. You're right. So Boomer,
he's tall. He's taller than you think. Boomer Esiason is like 6'4".
Yeah, well,
big motherfucker.
His name's stupid.
Dan Marino's a big motherfucker. Warren Moon's not that tall. He's about 6'1".
Is Jeff George in the league at that point?
He didn't get drafted till 89.
Yeah, no, he's not there yet. But 6'1" isn't out of the realm of possibility for a starting quarterback. You're not looking at a 6'1" guy and going, I don't know.
Yeah.
Jim McMahon. Yeah, thank you, Tony. Jim McMahon.
That goes to what you were saying, though, right? Like, how many talented black dudes were playing quarterback at some of these smaller schools that the NFL just immediately was like, ugh. It's like the Peter Griffin, like holding his knee.
But it's so
You know?
it's so crazy now because these guys like Turner Gill is a name unless you're a huge college football fan.
Yeah.
You know, he was the guy that led those was it Nebraska teams, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
To NCAA championships.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't get any shot in the league, and he goes to Canada and has some success. Of course, Warren Moon's probably the biggest story we know because there was some bidding war over him when he comes to the league. Scott, why do you think the NFL doesn't try to get more Warren Moons after the success of Warren Moon? Is it just Dieter Brock?
Well, I mean, wow, yeah, Dieter Brock. But the other thing with Brock was he was already at the end of his career when he goes with the LA Rams, right? He was already a decade into his career. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think one of the things though was that if you look, like you were saying before in your introduction, like Damon Allen, Tracy Ham, Doug Flutie, Matt Dunnigan was another great quarterback who set the single game passing record with like 700 yards in a game, which is just ridiculous. But I think the thing is, though, is that if you look at Allen, a lot of those guys are just ahead of the time. They're ahead of the curve of what the NFL was thinking what a quarterback can and should do. And I think Moon fit that mold because I always think of Warren Moon and Dan Marino being similar in terms of how they played quarterback. You know, if you watch them throw the ball, to me, it's very similar. It's just like that, like it's just a blur, and the ball's just 20 yards that way. So I think that's maybe why, because that Damon Allen was just like now a Damon Allen comes around. Yeah, 100% he's in the NFL. There's no question. There's no question about it.
Yeah, dude. Like he's a first round pick now.
Yeah, exactly. He's a first round pick. But I just think it was that style of play, you know? I mean, again, like Flutie talked about on that Julian Edelman podcast, he's like, yeah, we were running out of shotgun decades before the NFL ever did it. That was how we always ran the offense.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the NFL is only doing it because college did it first.
Yeah,
they had so many issues with quarterbacks adjusting to the pro game that these professional coaches that get paid millions and millions of dollars to bring out the best in their players finally were like, fuck, I guess we'll do the shotgun and I guess we'll run RPOs. You know, it's not like they did it because they wanted to, you know, like,
yeah.
Did the NFL finally understand the success that like a school like Oregon was getting, or did it have to be that the college game, if you will, really changed when like Auburn is running RPOs?
I mean, you got to think Oregon is it's not what you would call a power until the 2000s.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not a knock against them. I mean, let's face it, on the West Coast with the old school Pac-8, Pac-10, your powerhouse schools were in California. Everybody else was just filler. That's all it was, right? We've been playing in the same league since the 20s, see? So we're going to keep you around, but you're just going to be a speed bump for USC, all right? Okay. You know, like that's just, that was how it was, right? But when you have a guy like Chip Kelly, and I'm still butthurt he left the Buckeyes, but it is what it is, you know, that wants to revolutionize things. Guys like Hal Mummy as well, right? That decided 4 wideouts. No, sir. Fuck that. We don't need a running back out here. We're going 5 wide, right? Like when you have guys that are willing to change the rules of the game, essentially, like push the boundaries, you're going to have change. And college coaches were more willing to do that. And when you look at who was doing it, they weren't coming from big time programs. Where was Hal Mummy best known for? Kentucky, right? That's a basketball school, my man, right? Like that's just, he had the leeway to do it because the Kentucky admin was just like, I don't give a shit what you do. We've got national champs in basketball here. We don't give a shit what you do on the football field, right? Chip Kelly out on the West Coast. Like he started essentially his adventure up in the Northeast, where, let's face it, football's not what you would call like a big pool. You know, his first coaching job was at the University of New Hampshire, right? He goes out to Oregon, takes all that he's refined over quite a, you know, as a coordinator and position coach, and institutes it. And look what happens, man. He's all about conditioning and speed. I don't need the biggest guys. I need the guys who can play the longest and the fastest, right? And it changes the scope of the game. At that point, when Auburn starts running this stuff with Cam Newton, that's when you know it's hooked in and it's not going away.
Yeah.
Right? When a school that was, you know, we ran the triple option until 96, you know, that type of shit, is willing to kind of revolutionize their offense like that. This is a system or a facets of a system that are going to be part of the game now. You know, this isn't just a regional thing, or this isn't, you know, a guy like Mummy running this stuff at very small schools until he gets to Kentucky, right? This is part of the game. The NFL finally opened up the way the CFL did, like, I don't know, 25 years prior.
I mean, if not more. I mean, the pistol, and this is another thing that.
Yeah. You know, like, so, you know, I never quite understood why NFL coaches were so hesitant. You know, these are supposed to be the smartest guys in the room, but they're so hesitant into changing the way they do things. Like, you get a guy like Damon Allen, well, you're too athletic to play QB in the NFL. So, and I'm not willing to change my system. Yeah. But can you imagine this guy in like a Chip Kelly offense or like Lincoln Riley offense now? Fuck me, dude.
Throw for 6,000 yards in a season.
Yeah.
Or go 5,000, 1,000 rushing. And then I want to show you guys some highlights of Damon Allen so you can see this deep ball. This
22 years in the making. Damon Allen has surpassed Warren Moon.
Legend. Keep the legend alive.
At quarterback, number 9, from Cal State Fullerton, Damon Allen. First and 10 from the 26. Allen rolling out. Allen's got some room. Look out!
Yeah, he did throw a pretty ball, man.
Yeah. Between 3 guys.
Oh.
Look at that. So good.
Look at that fucking spiral.
For me at the time, and football is so exciting to me.
Sidearm.
I'm not going to stop this game until I go to every team in the league and they tell me I can't play anymore.
I told the guys throughout the week, I said, you thought the Western Final was sweet. Wait till you win the Grey Cup. Damon Allen makes the reverse. He'll run it in.
Yeah.
Now he's just showing off at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
2004 Grey Cup player of the game, Damon Allen. And with that, Damon Allen is the CFL's all-time leading passer.
Allen to the sideline, and this will take Damon Allen into the 70,000-yard club.
That's the record there. Allen is over the moon tonight.
Yeah, it's. I feel so fortunate I actually got to see that guy play. I mean, honestly, it's. He's like, I don't like Flutie's always talked about as the quote unquote GOAT in the CFL. I mean, the whole GOAT conversation is dumb and boring, but that's what people talk about. But for me, you look at the longevity. I mean, fuck, Damon Allen, like yeah, I'm not taking it away from Flutie, but geez, like Allen was good for a very long time.
Well, dude, yeah, I mean, if you're going to talk about a Flutie that would be like in that argument, it would have to be his brother. I think he played in Canada longer.
Oh yeah, he was a great wide receiver. He was awesome. Yeah.
You know, and the thing is, we all knew why Flutie was there. right? He just wanted to keep playing pro ball until he get back to the NFL. That's what he wanted. He said that multiple times, right? You know, and honestly, if the USFL lasted, he probably would have just stayed in that league. If we're being honest, he loved that. I mean, it was, you got to think the USFL compared to the NFL was like the ABA against the NBA, right? It was wide open. You had a lot of passing. People made better use of the space on the field. And the NFL, again, we're talking 3 yards of cloud of dust. You know, so like it's, yeah, Darren Flutie, I think if you're going to talk like Fluties that are Canadian goats, so to speak, that's the one you go with.
Yeah, that's a good
you know?
call. Darren Flutie was heck of a wide receiver for sure. But yeah, I mean, like Allen, you watch that and it's just awesome. And like I said, he was still doing that stuff. Like the Toronto highlights, like he's in his 40s when he's doing that stuff you see. Like that's like people talk about Brady.
Yeah.
Like this is another.
No, this dude ran for 11,000 yards.
Only I hold on. What was it? Where was it? Damon Allen. Here we go. His rushing record career-wise was only 300 so yards behind his brother.
Jesus Christ.
Like, and he was also a quarterback. And he also threw for 70,000 yards plus.
Like you can't even say he was a running quarterback. You have to say like this dude did it all.
Hugged it, chucked it football, and just ran when he had to, and still racked up 11,000 yards. You know, like
it's insane to think that there's people that don't want him in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because he didn't play in the NFL.
Yeah, and I have this argument all the time, right? There are ABA players in the Basketball Hall of Fame, right?
Negro League players in the Major League Hall of Fame.
Yeah, you know, like it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not the NFL Hall of Fame, right? So you should have like AAFC players in there. You should have, you know, the AFL players in there. You should, you know, we should have Canadian players there. Apparently, it's the Pro fucking Football Hall of Fame. Honestly, Kurt Warner probably could have gotten in the Hall of Fame just on his Arena League numbers, right? Like if we just encompassed it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, man. But you know, I'm just an asshole that talks on the internet once a week. So what do I know? All these sports writers know so much better. Man, fuck.
Well, Steve Mariucci, there's like a handful of people that are trying to lobby to get Damon Allen in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Right
There's
on.
no reason not to. Right? Like when Warren Moon got there, he definitely should have had his Canadian numbers added to it. Because guess what? He was playing professional football.
They did add his Canadian
Good.
numbers.
You know, but like it's the same thing. Like if Jeff Garcia ever got there, throw his Canadian numbers on there too. You know, like why the fuck not? What do you have to lose, man?
Nothing.
You know, like makes no fucking
There's
sense.
Japanese players that have never played in major leagues that are in the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame.
I'm pretty sure there's a few Russian players in the Hockey Hall of Fame who never played in the NHL. They were just in the Russian league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were playing in the Soviet Union, and they were the best hockey players.
Yeah, you know, like, and I just like we shouldn't be gatekeeping actual greatness, man. Like a lot of the Hall of Fames now are like looking for people to put in. Like it's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of you were pretty good.
This is the mea culpa that the NFL needs to do in lieu of, you know, the Kaepernick insanity, and now in lieu of the Shedeur Sanders nonsense, right? Like, just let in some of these guys because they don't want to do it, and we all know why.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to admit maybe we were a little racist, and you open yourself up to lawsuits.
Yeah,
who really wants to deal with a class action lawsuit from the lambda of black quarterbacks that never got in the fucking NFL?
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's funny thinking about this, you know, when I was getting into football and the CFL, I mean, a lot of this stuff I got from my dad, telling me about the game and the history of the game. And I remember hearing about that and one of my grandparents, He was also a big football guy. And I remember as a kid hearing about the Warren Moon thing. They're like, well, he played in Canada because they didn't want black quarterbacks. And I remember as a kid, like, I'm not saying it was a radicalizing moment, but it was definitely like, what? That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Like, racism's really dumb. And that's actually what drove it home for me, I think, more than anything else. Like, what? That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. And it's just like, yeah, it's, and talking about that NFL films thing, the CFL films idea, like, that's a thing the league can kind of market. You don't even have to come out and say it, but just talking about this stuff is like, hey, we weren't the fucking racist league.
That's how you recruit that's how you get guys like the kid, I can't think of his name, that might not sign with the Bengals to go, oh, maybe Canada's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because also he probably thinks all the women look like moose. It's not true.
No, not at all.
It's not true.
I had a great time in Montreal the 3 times I've been there. It was phenomenal.
So it's like, dude, you go like he's gonna be like Stephon Marbury going to China, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't want to be there. Oh my God. They all look like this.
Oh man.
Can you imagine, like, I know we're getting kind of sidetracked here, but can you imagine like Stephon Marbury's first week in China? Like, he's in his late 30s. The career's almost over. He's trying to extend it just a little bit. Some Chinese team offers him a shit ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, fuck. Well, you know what? I want to earn. Let's go. We're going to China. And he just like shows up and he's just like, what the fuck?
Like, man, I thought y'all had flat butts. What's the hell going on?
Yeah.
Y'all have Puerto Rican? What is going on? My God.
And then what kills me, he was like, I'm only going to China for 1 year. He plays there for 5 and becomes like a hero to
he's not coming back.
No.
Did you watch the documentary? Scott, have you ever watched the Stephon Marbury documentary?
No, I gotta watch it.
If you don't shed a tear at the end when he goes to this barber shop and he's talking to this little kid in this fucking barbershop because he kind of understands that there's a better place for you than the ghetto because he got to spend time in China. Like, think about that for a second. Wow. Go follow him on social media.
Okay.
He doesn't give a fuck about whatever anyone's doing in the States.
I love it. That's awesome.
I mean, honestly, I don't think Stephon Marbury gave a fuck about what anybody was doing in the States when he was in the States.
That's a good point.
Remember
when he lost his mind for a bit?
Yeah, like, and he was Starbury, and I'm just like, bro, this is not it, man. Like, Steph, I love you, dude, but
them cats go to some of those countries and they get treated well. They're like, why would I want to go back and hear this?
We coming for you, nigga.
Not at all. Not at all.
Dude, when I was running Hometown Crowd with my buddy Tim and Heather, we interviewed a dude that played at UNC, Jason, that plays professionally in New Zealand.
Mm.
And he's like, get this, man, not a lot of black people here. But he's like, the Maori here love basketball.
Mm.
So he's like, dude, I could get drunk one night, plow through 3 of them, and they'd still be like, well, he just had a bad night, like, and he's like, I don't do that. He's like, I'm married and I got kids and, I love playing ball professionally and I want to represent my team and my city well. But he's like, dude, it's the same, like you were saying. He's like, I get shit on when I go home.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I come back to that?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, my life is here now. He's like, I have no intention of ever going back to the United States. He retired like a year ago. And so I texted him, I'm like, still staying? He's like, dude, I'm a citizen now. He's like, I shredded my US passport. I'm officially a citizen of New Zealand, like
I'm good.
He's like, I'm fucking gravy, like
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. And I'm just like, there's something to that, man. Like there really is. especially considering how insular the United States is, right? Like, yeah, there's no place better. And then some of these dudes go and maybe they play for a little bit and they start coaching. And all three of us know coaching is a crapshoot. You could be coaching in fucking Los Angeles one day and be in like Biloxi, Mississippi the next day, you know, and they start seeing what the world is. And they're like, holy shit, maybe America isn't the end all be all. And I fucking love seeing that, man. Like, I like when people kind of open their minds and they're just like, I've literally been force-fed bullshit my entire life. You know, like it's, oh, okay, Prairie, it doesn't matter if there's a single Waffle House or not. Okay.
A single Waffle House.
But the fact of the matter is, there's probably something commensurate that I want to get at 2:30 in the morning when I'm done drinking. Okay. And I'm sure there's a place like that in New Zealand. There's a place like that in every country.
I'm sure your hot Maori girlfriend will show you where it is.
Oh, dude, she could lead me by the ear. I don't give a fuck. Let's go.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say I have a lot of family in New Zealand. I have two of my aunts live there. My older brother lives in Auckland. He teaches at a university. So, yeah, I mean, living down there, I could totally see like you'd get down there and you'd be like, yeah, I don't think I want to leave.
Yeah.
You know, like this is actually pretty sweet. And but in that relation to kind of the CFL, it's funny, like, again, and this kind of gets into, you guys kind of talk about on the show, the small business mentality. This gets into the, you know, the NFL is just a pure meritocracy. And it's like, well, look, you're let's just lay out this scenario. You've been playing football almost all your life. You go through college. Maybe you get in the NFL for a little bit, but, you know, maybe it's an injury where you just get cut. And what are you going to do? Are you going to say, oh, I don't want to, but there's this other league there that you can play in? And why wouldn't you take that opportunity? And especially depending on the position you're playing, you're still making, you know, six figures. I mean, it's not NFL insane money. A lot of the starters, the once you get into, especially if you get into a starting position, like, yeah, you're making good money plus incentives. It's like, and I could make money here doing what I love. And I'm just doing it in Canada for as long as I possibly can. It's because you even get that in Canada where they're like, oh, it's, you know, the players make no money. And you're like, hold on now. These guys are still making more than what you make in a year.
They're not selling insurance in the off season like the old NFL.
Yeah. It's like, what are you talking? It's like, yeah, maybe you do it and you're making $200K a year and you live in Montreal. Who's not going to take that deal?
Fuck, I'll take that deal right now. I'm wearing an Expos hat. I'm wearing an Expos hat. Look.
Hey, also
sign me up.
Hey, also too, I mean, I guess I'm biased. Winnipeg's a great city too. I mean, come on. I mean, like it's not it's better than being in some places in the States for some guys.
Just say it. Just say it. You know you want to say it because what are you bordering? North Dakota.
There you go. Yeah. So it's like it's funny, the attitude, but it's like, well, why not? You know, why not? And guys make good money and they can still provide for their family and have enough for at least some sort of a baseline kind of existence going forward and some financial security. Like, come on, like it's ridiculous.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to was saying with this idea that everything we're saying, we're still from a generation of this thing called selling out. So we're doing it for the love of doing it, right? There's nothing big. I don't have a sponsor that I read an ad on, right? I do this because I like doing it. It's just what I do.
If we had a sponsor, it would be dick pills and sex toys.
That's exactly what it would be. Probably pay us so much.
They would too.
I totally read that. Hey, I have like a whole fake story. Like, hey, Mac, I was trying to bang this chick and I couldn't get an erection because I'm old and eat bad.
So I took this Blue Chew.
Oh my God. Have you ever seen your balls grow?
Scott, yes, I know you were talking about the finances of the CFL, but having problems pleasuring your old lady.
Blue Chew will increase your profit margins.
You know,
And your load.
guys.
But
is it Puffs of Dust coming out? Well, I got the Ball Buster 3000 supplement right here, and I tell you, I've been shooting ropes for days.
Blue Chew.
Kush. Oh my gosh. We have done so well. We have done so well tonight. We've talked CFL and racial implications and finances and see, Scott, this is typically where Jason and I go too long. We're off the field, man. You know, we veer off and that's it. But yeah, man.
Well, Jason, when you had to leave to go to the bathroom, I was like, well, I hope this isn't a chorizo situation.
Oh, you know. No, it no, it was not. It was not.
Thank God.
7-Eleven chorizo. Like I've walked into a 7-Eleven since then, but I do have like PTSD from looking at the chorizo section.
As one should. The actual PTSD probably should hit you when you're in your kitchen and you just look where the trail is.
The horror. The horror.
Just
Tony said this show stayed on the rails way longer than normal before signing off.
I appreciate that, Tony. Hey, you know what, Drea? Can you imagine the ad bit we'd have to stop? You know, like, guys, are you feeling backed up? If you need a looser stool, just go to 7-Eleven.
And buy their, and say like Rodney Dangerfield, and buy their meat. Oh, their meat, I tell you.
Yeah. I shit all over my floor. See, Scott, this is what keeps us from getting on like a respectable show. I'm very convinced of this.
It's. I mean, I love it because there's, like, wow, this interesting discussion really making me think about things. And then it's like, okay, but where is this going to go? Like, what's the deviation point? Mm-hmm. And what are they going to go off on?
This is why Damon Allen can't come on. He was like, oh, yeah, man, he's got, oh, shit, did he just say?
Jason emails Damon Allen, and he's like, I'd love to talk about my time in the CFL. I loved it. Then he, like, does some background, and he's like, these two fucking weirdos.
I always get worried when, because I have a couple publicists that send, like, writers my way. And they never watch the show, which is good.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, did you watch the show? And they go, no. I'm like, okay, good.
Or you get them, you're like, whatever you do, don't watch Wednesday's show.
Don't watch that one.
What's fucked up is when they go, oh, I love your show. And I'm like, which one did you see?
Yeah.
But actually, you know what? I got to get going right away. But there's one thing you could do for me, actually, for everyone to see. If could you pull up another video quickly?
Sure. Which one?
Just look up Charles Roberts. You got to see this guy.
The cognac smoking fucking dynamo.
Just ridiculous. I mean, whatever little highlight thing. I mean, the dude was insane.
He got some. Here's a mix. Here's a mix. Give me 1 second. Because they actually have Sac State highlights.
Oh, awesome.
Is Sac State Division I now, Mac? Didn't they go Division I?
They're FCS, but they are looking to do the move up to FBS.
Was it Davis that moved up? I can't remember.
Davis moved up to officially FBS in certain sports, but not all.
Number one back in CFL history.
Oh, that guy looks like he gets a little drunk before the game.
Let's mute it in case this is
copyrighted music. Interesting choice.
Can't have copyrighted music playing. Sorry, Chuck. Oh,
dude just would not go down.
Who does he remind you of, Mac?
I mean, Sproles is probably the best one because Sproles never ran from contact, like ever. He was a dude that would seek it out. I never understood guys his size that were just like, I'm going to go find someone to hit.
Oh,
Especially when they were fast.
Slippery.
Yeah.
It's still 10 yards for a first down, right?
Oh, yeah.
Damn. That's crazy because I know Canada's not big on running the ball.
I think it just depends more on the team.
It does, yeah.
If you got a guy like Damon Allen, he's going to do most of your running for you, and you're going to put the ball in the air as much as you can. But I've seen teams, Hamilton, like 2 or 3 years ago, Scott, like that was a run heavy team.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he was. Yeah, Charles Roberts, one of my. Watching him play live from the perspective of the stands, you would just see this little guy go into what looked like a big, massive humanity and just come out the other end. You're like, how did that happen?
He's not. What's great about this is he's not trying to. He's looking for contact.
Yeah,
like, look at him.
He's going right after dudes.
Yeah, he's looking for it. He's like, fuck the sideline.
Yeah,
that's for the hose.
Or the huzz, apparently. Like my son threw that out there, and I'm like, what the hell is the huzz? And he's like, the hose. I was like, I don't want to hear my 14-year-old son talking about the hose or the huzz in any, capacity.
Oh.
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
His change of direction is nuts.
Nuts.
Yeah. His nickname was Blink because he'd blink. He'd just.
Does he have the balance? Oh.
But still, like, you notice, like, the first dude that hits him always comes away looking like an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say Barry Sanders because Barry Sanders didn't run out of the gun.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I don't think anybody is really comparable to Barry Sanders and what he was able to do on a football field. Like, he honestly could have played 5 more years at the same level if he didn't retire.
And and also Barry Sanders had a very particular build. And this dude is just legitimately small. Like, look how little his legs are.
Yeah.
Oof. 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 Like, you're still getting tackled by grown-ass men.
Yeah.
Oof. You know who else I found out played in the CFL? Tony Mandrich's brother.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. That's how he got, his brother showed him how to use steroids.
Fuck.
Thanks, Canada.
Ooh. Yeah, he's constantly looking for contact. When you're that little,
yeah,
and you're looking for contact all the time like that, that's nuts.
That's a guy who had some bad Canadian McDonald's before the game, and it's just running so he can get off the field and take a shit. That's what it is.
He did not have the spinach feta wrap.
No, he did not have the spinach feta wrap.
He had the McDonald's poutine. Don't get that, by the way. It's gross.
No, if you're in Canada and you get McDonald's poutine, you're fucked up. You have to get actual.
Yeah, that was dumb. You're from the Midwest and you're a tourist.
Yeah, you're from Omaha, right?
Oh, Prairie Fire's gonna get hella mad. He's like, I would never get the poutine at McDonald's. But get the spinach feta wrap for breakfast.
So there's a lot of movies get made in Winnipeg because a lot of times it can be a stand-in for Chicago. A lot of like Hallmark movies get made in Winnipeg.
I didn't know that.
And I forget what year it was, but it was Charles Roberts was playing for the Bombers. And my dad, we were at a game, and my dad was sitting beside this guy from somewhere in the southern United States. He was in shooting a movie, part of the crew. And he just went to this football game, and he's sitting beside my dad with a southern drawl. He's like, I just wanted to check out this game. I've never seen Canadian football. And so my dad's like, okay, I'll just, there's a couple different rule things I'll explain to you. But this guy from watching the game was like enamored with Charles Roberts. And I just remember the quote. He was like, oh, that Charlie Roberts, I just give him the ball every time. They're like, yeah, actually, that's kind of what they do.
I mean, look, dude, I didn't know he was returning punts too.
Yeah, he was a really good punt returner too.
Because he looks like a guy that would return punts, and
Yeah.
you'd have a package of plays for him. Again, this is why guys like Sean Payton, I think, love Canadian football, because it becomes your secret weapon for these things that he calls the Joker package, for these kind of Charlie Roberts types backs he has. He has a guy named is it Charles Mims? Is that his name? I know Mims is the last name.
Yeah, I think that's him.
A little smaller, kind of a tweener. What are you going to do with him? Is he a running back? Is he a wide receiver? But you get a guy and put him in that position where it's like, we're going to split you out. We're going to run you out of gun. You can you're going to return punts and kicks, and you just are the big play guy.
Right. Yeah, I think another thing too with that is because I know there was a number of guys that played for the Saints when Peyton was there from the CFL, and one of the guys, a linebacker, Adam Bighill, who's now near the end of his career, great linebacker, played for a little bit with New Orleans with Peyton, and in an interview, he actually made an interesting comment. He said, "Well, if you're going to get a shot in the NFL, most likely you're going to be on special teams." And he's like, the thing is, in the NFL, special teams for a lot of teams, a lot of play is just like an afterthought. So he's like, but in New Orleans, the coach and Sean Payton, they took that shit seriously. So they wanted guys that could run what they wanted for special teams, for kick cover, punt cover, or punt return, kick return. And special teams in the CFL is still a true third part of the game. It really does matter. Like, it's, aside from the kicking, which is a big part of it too, but even punt return, kick return, you have to have a good returner, which is at least what I've noticed. I don't think returners are the same big thing they were in the NFL even when I started watching. Like, you had Devin Hester and guys like that, and now I don't notice it as much in the NFL.
Yeah, that's why they're trying to change the rules to get the return game part of the game again.
Yeah,
because kickers can kick it out of the end zone,
Yeah.
and punters are really specializing in ball placement.
Yeah,
which they're starting to get really, really good at.
Well, that's what happens when you get rugby kickers.
Agreed.
People don't realize when you're when you're playing rugby, everybody kicks pretty well, but then you have the one guy that can put it through the uprights at any spot on the field. And, they're still having issues transitioning, like rugby players transitioning to skill positions. But, dude, let them kick. Man, they could punt that ball fucking 60 yards and put it wherever they want. It's not even an issue.
Well, yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, another thing more recently, the CFL just created, so they have ratios for for Americans, Canadians, but now they have a global position. So it's players who don't have, they could be from France, Germany. There's been some guys from Japan, from Australia. For instance, the Bombers kicker comes from an Aussie rules background, the punter.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing punter, actually, because of how good he is at placing. Jameson Sheehan is his name. But he comes out of Aussie rules. And it's interesting with the global initiative with the CFL, like, they're not stars, but like they're contributing to the teams.
Yeah.
Like, it's an interesting. So, I mean, the thing is, when it was brought out in the CFL, the former commissioner Ambrosi, that was his baby, but he was like, "Oh, we're going to make all this money off of it," which has never happened and it never will happen. But it's a cool idea. I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a cool thing. Like, there's guys playing in Europe and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, let's just give them a look.
Well, I mean, talent's talent.
Yeah.
And if you want to flesh out a good team, and honestly, with any owner, he wants to do it on the cheap, right? You go digging and find these hidden gems, right? And I think that's what's great is, the rest of the world has fallen in love with American football. Like, people don't realize the Japanese league, which is called like the Extreme League or something like that. Their team essentially made up the junior team that in the World Cup of Football, which is a real thing. The Japan won the last one. It wasn't the Americans.
Wow.
Right. So like, it's gaining traction, is it ever going to surpass European football? No, I don't think that's something you want. But if you can just get a footprint, right? Because a lot of these guys that are coming from different countries, they go back home and talk about it, right? And it spreads the word, So yeah, get your Aussie rules punter and let them go back home and like, yeah, it gets fucking cold, but Canada's rad, and here's the rules of the game.
Yeah.
And that's how the NFL grew. That's how baseball grew. That's how these things start.
For sure. Yeah.
This dude's a beast.
And that the CFL could hire this fucking dude that puts, the last two dudes that put together this clip package of this fantastic dude. Hire them.
Yeah.
I guarantee you they'd be like, I'll take a case of Molson a week and like 300 and we can call it good,
Yeah, for sure. So it's I mean, it's true though, especially with the global aspect of the game. And you're right, like especially with kickers, like because I do watch not a ton, but I do watch some rugby and stuff like that. And I have watched some Aussie rules, and yeah, man, like when you watch those guys, like I know the transition is difficult, they haven't done it, but you see the skill set.
Yeah.
And you're like, wouldn't that be something? We have a punter who's also can not be afraid of contact, who's really good, who's like kind of like our safety valve for if a guy breaks it, he can actually make a tackle. Like that's actually a good thing to have on the team, isn't it?
I think that's what they're looking for.
I
really do think that's what they're looking for. I do think those dudes might be a little crazy though.
Oh, dude, they're absolutely crazy.
They're out of their minds.
I want to say it's at Bowling Green, the punter at Bowling Green. He's 6'5", 240.
Fuck.
And he was a pro rugby player in Europe that was playing at the lower levels. And he was like, this isn't going to work out for me. So he moved to the States, goes to school in Bowling Green of all places. And the coach was just dead ass like, hey man, you want to kick a football and we'll pay for you to go to school? And he was like, fuck it, let's go. And dude is just like yoked, covered in tattoos from like his jaw all the way down to his ankles. And dude, he just lays fuckers out. Like Scott said, when they break that last line of defense, he's there for contact, man.
Yeah.
But he's like, dude, he's like, my school's paid for. I don't have to do shit except kick a football a couple times a game. He's like, you know how cool that is? Like
for sure. Yeah. It's and especially, like I said, because in the CFL, like the return game is still a major part of the game. And that was a weakness last year for Winnipeg. They didn't have a good return game. And it was glaring because other teams they have a good returner. And the guys who are really fast and like will burn you. So which is, like you said, the NFL is kind of trying to change that because that kind of went away. I remember that return thing was, and it's too bad too, because especially in the NFL, because I feel like in terms of exciting plays, the kick returns are
punt return is like the most exciting play ever.
It's so exciting, right?
Reggie Bush. Yeah.
So so good. But anyways, I do got a jet, but thank you so much. This was awesome. I'm talking about one of my favorite things in the world, which is football and specifically Canadian football. So thanks for this.
Well, look, ask and you will receive on this show, maybe even soccer. Thank you, Scott. Have a good rest of your evening.
Have a good one, Scott.
Macadocious, I know it's late where you are. Oh shit. All right. It's late where you are. Let's leave now so you can get some sleep.
But dude, this was a lot of fun, man. I mean, we probably need to get some people on. Prairie, he's getting to it. Okay, he just bought the house. Come on, let's not give Scott a hard time. Scott came down. Yeah, I saw that, Red. That's my reading for tomorrow when it's raining and I still have to take pictures outside and I'm not gonna be doing shit.
Thank you for watching, Drea. I do have some questions to ask you about the NBA draft probably tomorrow while you're at work.
Oh, dude, definitely, because I'm gonna be catching up tomorrow. I saw the first picks and I was like, okay, who's gonna do the reaching? And my brother texted me while we were on air, and he was like, all it was, Jason, was what in the actual fuck? That's all he said.
Mercutio says, before you go, I would like Jason to try this race-based tongue twister. Weary white women whistle while washing wiffle balls.
You got it. You got it.
I don't know what. Look,
You're a consummate professional, my friend.
I was having a rough start to the show, and I don't know if my eyes were moving faster than the teleprompter was moving. So please have a little grace.
Yeah. Tony, we had a special guest today, man, and it was about the CFL. So we can talk about the phenomenal 7-game series we had. And this was a great series. And probably we also need to talk about the horrible run of Achilles injuries in the NBA.
Someone said, oh, this should be right up your alley. I think it was Tony. Was like, this would be right up your alley. I've been watching videos about it, and I read a real brief thing about it. I can't remember where, but all these Achilles injuries, and a lot of people putting it at the reason that all the games people are playing from such a young age.
I mean, I would argue it probably has something to do with the NBA season being too long as well.
There's that. I think the playoffs can go back to the old format of 3-2-3. No,
like going like, dude, you
2-2. What was it again?
Dude, I would even argue go Major League Baseball's route. The first round, 5-game series.
2-3-2. So 7-game series would be 2-3-2, and you play games consecutively. All this day off shit, I hate it. Just play the games consecutively. Stop having the postseason last another 3 months.
Yeah, like
do like baseball.
Cut it down to 65 games. The regular season, you can still have the in-season tournament, and you wouldn't have to start the playoffs in like fucking it seems like April and end in June. I don't know though.
Here's another one. This is the last one, and then we'll go.
Okay.
Mr. Miles manscapes his Mexican mangina.
Well, you got to keep it nice and tidy, Mercutio. You never know who you're going to show the mangina to later that evening.
You got to keep a little Hitler stash on top too. Makes your dick look longer. You'd be surprised how many people love the crack. You'd be surprised.
I don't think people are going to. I don't think we're going to find many takers of the pubic Hitler stash. I'm just saying.
You'd be surprised because look, I got like right now you can't see, but I'm wearing these jeans that are a little bit of a low rise, so you can see the mangina. When you have that mangina top, they know you're about the business. When it's totally gone, they're like, oh, you're fucking got a child's balls.
Oh my God, Jason, that's enough. That is enough. Tapping out for the evening.
That's what she said. All right, we're out. Thank you guys so much.
Love you guys.
Sleep. Peace.